Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another live reading of the solo leveling light novel. We are finally going to be reaching the first 100 chapter of the light novel. And once we get to around maybe 10:30, maybe 10:40, I'd say we are halfway through the entire series. Since there's 270 chapters of the light novel, yeah, once we get to that point, I can say we have reached the halfway mark. But let's go ahead and get started with the brand new chapters, shall we? Just a little bit of a recap. Jin took a part of a raid team where they were beset. Yes, I use the word beset. Beset by ogres. Not ogres, but high orcs. And the team leader gets brutalized by the leader of these high orcs until Jin steps in, and he has been using his abilities to keep everyone on the raid team pretty much safe. And last we get is Cha Hae-in walking in to see all of Jin's soldiers just, doing work. Chapter 91.
Summons?
The first thing Cha Hae-in thought of was summoning when she saw the shadow soldiers. I want to make sure I read that right. The first thing Cha Hae-in thought of was summoning when she saw the shadow soldiers. However, there were simply too many of them to say that this was a result of summoning magic. The thing was, the mage-type hunters specializing in summoning magic could only control one or two at a push. If one could control two, then the treatment one received improved greatly, and she hadn't yet heard of anyone capable of controlling 3 or more summoned creatures. However, just how many of them were here?
This makes no sense.
One man summoned over 100 in one go, and he didn't even need a lot of time to summon them, too. No, he only needed a moment to summon dozens and dozens in one go.
I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see it with my own 2 eyes.
She might be one of the top 10 ranked hunters in South Korea, but another hunter's ability had managed to leave her totally speechless now. However,
this isn't the time for me to stand around like this.
Her gaze immediately shifted past the shadow soldiers and locked onto the raid team. Their complexions were not good at all. Some of them were squatting on the ground as if they no longer had any energy left. Didn't matter what the identity of a man named Sung Jinu was. Didn't matter what kind of ability he possessed. Her priority lay with lending him aid by taking care of these high orcs right away. The result of her thought process might be simple, but she was incredibly quick to put them into action. Cha tightened her grip on the weapon in her hands and took a step towards the high orcs. Remember, she was offered a pickaxe because she left her sword at home. However, it happened then. Her eyes met Jin's, and his eyes were telling her in no uncertain terms that it was not necessary, that she shouldn't interfere, that she should just observe from the sidelines. Cha couldn't understand why.
But how come?
She could easily tell that Jin was capable of controlling countless summons. However, there were just as many high orcs standing, and there was also the boss possessing greater power, too. Because he had yet... Hold on, I have to switch to the correct screen. Sorry about that. Because he had yet to summon that many creatures, and he had to maintain them constantly, too, his magic energy reserve should be running empty by now, yet...
What is he trying to do on his own?
She was puzzled, sure, but in the end, Cha lowered her weapon. It wasn't because the so-called weapon just so happened to be a pickaxe she borrowed from the mining team. No, she became curious with what the hunter named Sung Jinu would do against the army of high orcs instead. Yo, kitty, welcome back to a reading of Solo Leveling. It is so good to see you. I hope your day has been fantastic. No, she became curious with what the hunter named Sung Jinu would do against the army of high orcs instead. Expectations. Her cool-headed reasoning and her expectation had a fight in her mind, and the latter achieved a resounding victory. For some reason, her heart began palpitating faster now.
That's a relief.
Oh, that's a relief. Jin inwardly breathed a sigh of relief after seeing Cha Hae-in's response. Seriously, the real thing was about to begin, so it wouldn't do for some interference to suddenly pop out, now would it? Heck, he even had to let the poor Son Ki-hoon go through all that crap until the very last moment humanly possible, just for a chance to monopolize all the monsters in here. Well, he's the kind of a guy who'd try to fight alongside if he had some energy left still. That was why he only acted the moment Ki-hoon let go of his sword, even though he had to suppress his urge to rush forward and kick the head of that darn shaman. It was all for this moment. As expected of a quick-witted woman. What a relief it was that Cha Hae-in turned out to be a smart girl. She backed off without needing him to raise his voice, after all. Jin turned his attention back to his front while a deep smile formed on his face. Shadows! Jin's loud yell Jin's loud yell reverberating within the boss room prompted. Yeah, it was missing in the property there. It's been pretty good, just chilling. Yours? Oh, it's been great. It's been absolutely fantastic. I'm thinking about having another session after I'm done with this one. I feel like continuing with a little bit more Borderlands. And no, I don't think I'll be burnt out from it, but I just feel led in that direction. Cause I could either do one or two things tomorrow. I could catch up with One Punch Man since the chapters are out, including some brand new ones, or we could have that Xbox discussion, and I have the One Punch Man session on the Wednesday along with the new chapter. There's a lot of things to do this week. There's a lot of things to do. Shadows. Jin's loud yell reverberating within the boss room prompted the shadows to take the battle stance all at once, not one of them deviating from the formation ever so slightly. Clack! Only a moment later, an eerie silence filled up the chamber. The thing that broke this silence was a single word Jin threw out while pointing at the High Orc Shaman. Go. With that, over 100 shadow soldiers rushed towards the cowering group of High Orc warriors. It's a solid game. Ooh, let's do Xbox. I could go for that rant. Yeah. You know what? Yeah. We'll actually have the Xbox discussion a little bit later on after I'm done with solo leveling, because I don't want to wait too long for it. Yeah, I don't want to wait too long for it. Tomorrow can be when I catch up to One Punch Man before the newest chapter drops on Wednesday. Yeah, good idea, Kitty. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll have the Xbox discussion after this. A little while after this. With that, over 100 shadow soldiers rushed towards the cowering group of High Orc warriors. Rumble! The black soldiers in their controlled march shook the ground, the cavern, and even the eyes of all those witnessing this scene. Wu was running breathlessly. He ran so hard that he now tasted sweetness in his mouth. He bent over and tried to catch his breaths before raising his torso up, only to spot a woman with a short hairstyle standing near the entrance of the boss room. He immediately recognized who she was. Cha Hae-in. Where would you find a female hunter possessing an aura like hers? However, why is she standing still like that? Wu found it strange that she didn't try to participate in the battle and simply stood by, so he quickly walked up next to her. And it was at that point he got to see clearly the situation inside the boss room. What is this? Soldiers wearing jet black armor were one-sidedly massacring the supposedly powerful monsters, also known as High Orc warriors. The pitiful screams of the High Orcs even managed to deafen Wu's own hearing. Also, he might have been less shocked if there were only human-shaped soldiers present. But then again, just what were those nonsensically large, huge black bears with smoke coming out of them, as well as High Orcs kitted out in various black-colored armor?
Been a while, Chief Wu.
Ah, yes, miss. It's been a while. But what are they? They don't seem to be simple monsters.
They're summons that man called out.
Cha greeted Wu first before pointing at Jin in the distance. Wu quickly took his sunglasses off and stared at Jin, kind of like Alan Grant during the very first Jurassic Park movie. And stared at Jin, now standing in the middle of the battlefield. While wielding two short swords that looked like daggers, he was busy destroying the formation of the High Orcs. No matter how I see it, doesn't he look like a top-ranked melee-type hunter? However, he could even use summoning magic too. And sure enough, when Jin's lips moved a little, dozens more summons rose up from the ground. Oh my god. Wu's jaw fell to the floor. Just how many summons could that man control? This is the true ability of Hunter Sung Jinu. He couldn't close shut his slack jaw at all. Could the association President Go have recognized the skill set of Hunter Sung Jinu already? If so, then his sky-high interest in Hunter Sung made plenty of sense. Cha couldn't rip her eyes away from Jin for a long time, but she belatedly did manage that and asked Wu,
By the way, why are you here, Chief Wu? Was the call made to the monitoring division already?
When Cha asked him that question, Wu somehow managed to regain control over his emotions and replied, No, that's not it. We were in the neighborhood, just passing by. But it was a coincidence that we discovered the gate's abnormal condition, and we came here to help facilitate the evacuation of the raid team. But, well... Wu stopped talking there and stared at Jin again. However, looks like that wasn't necessary. This would be his first time witnessing Hunter Sung Jinu's true skill, and that just so happened to be the spectacle of him clearing a rank A dungeon with his own power. It didn't look like the others' help was necessary.
Yes, I think standing still is the right call to make here.
Cha too agreed with that assessment. That man's battle didn't leave any gaps for a rank S like her to butt in at all.
Do you know who that man is?
Cha asked. Wu was clearly admiring Jin's skills and obviously not worried about his identity, at least not outwardly. Also, he was an agent of the association who did block Jin's information from leaking out too.
So maybe Wu might know who that man is.
Her expectation was on the money. Yes, a little bit.
That man, just who is he?
Wu put his sunglasses back on and replied, I can't reveal that information. The shaman was furious. When it first opened its eyes in this place, only one order was filling up its mind. However, what was the meaning of this pathetic display? Wasn't a lone human easily hunting down every single member of its tribe? This wasn't supposed to happen. No, such a thing must not happen at all. The shaman's eyes reddened even further as it witnessed the massacre of its subordinates. You insect-like cretin! I'll step on you! If hexes didn't work against the enemy, then all it had to do was to bless itself and fight. The song of rage, the song of strengthening, the song of the giants, the song of the fire dragon! With the completion of the various spells, the shaman's body suddenly ballooned up to nearly 10 meters tall. Its strength, agility, stamina, and even its confidence increased greatly as well, power filling up every square inch of its frame. Right away, the shaman used its gigantic arm to swat away the shadow soldiers, and then took a deep breath. And then... When the shaman spat out its breath, reddish-black flames erupted out of its mouth. Rumble! The soldiers immediately dissipated and scattered away when they were struck dead on by the flames. Even those grazed by it were no exception. Parts of their bodies were blown away, and they were rendered unable to carry on fighting. The flames didn't end with just one attack. The second wave of flames spat out of the shaman's mouth in a row. The shaman was able to greatly reduce the number of the shadow soldiers with its continuous attacks. Having received a boost to its confidence, it roared out at the top of its lungs. "Do you still find this great Kargalgan funny now?" The reply came from above its head. "Yup." Yeah, that's the thing about Nightbot. It either does it on the timer I set, or it does it based on how active people speak in chat. That's the reason why sometimes Nightbot will pop up and say like, "Oh, you need to stretch. Oh, you need to hydrate. Oh, join the Continuum," many minutes before it's time. So that's something that I don't think they've been able to fix yet. The reply came from above its head. "Yup." I find it funny how Kargalgan is all like, "Do you find me funny?" And you hear the voice of Jin just above him. "Do you still find this great Kargalgan funny now?" The reply came from above its head. "Yup." The shaman flinched and raised its head, all the while hurriedly trying to chant a defensive spell, but Jin was one step quicker. Sorry, couldn't help yourself. You're fine. Don't even worry about it, kitty. You're fine. But Jin was one step quicker. Pow! Crack! The shaman's head smashed down into the ground. The floor shattered and spiderweb-like cracks rapidly spread out. Jin had already experienced blowing away Vulcan with his bare fist, and that demon was much, much larger than this air. Also, much larger. I couldn't even find my words. I'm sorry, I'm slurring speech here. Jin had already experienced blowing away Vulcan with his bare fist, and that demon was much, much larger than this arrogant shaman, too.
You have killed the owner of the dungeon.
This is fundamentally different from both the webcomic and the anime, because in the anime, Kargalgan is defeated by his own turned henchman. But here, Jin just literally bashes his skull in, and he defeats him that way. Yeah, it is definitely different here.
You have killed the owner of the dungeon.
Tab. When he lightly landed on the ground, feel-good messages began popping up in his view, one after the other.
Ding! Level up.
There you go. Jin pumped his fist. Back when he was fighting using stealth, he leveled up once. When he was killing these orcs, another level up. And after killing the boss just now, another level up. Clearing this rank A dungeon netted him 3 level ups. In other words, this was a result well above his expectation. He even felt very grateful towards Foreman Bay for suggesting yesterday that they should work together again. This is very good. With an elated mind, Jin walked closer to the boss. The once buffed-up shaman's body had reverted back to its original size already. He saw an egg-sized magic crystal embedded in the dead boss's necklace, but he decided not to get too greedy. Earning experience points is good enough. This was the Hunters Guild's dungeon. This was the Hunters Guild dungeon at the end of the day. What is... I'm sorry, I feel kind of silly now. This was the Hunters Guild's dungeon at the end of the day. If he wanted to get his hands on a magic crystal from a rank 8 dungeon, he didn't need to enter someone else's dungeon. He'd just buy himself a permit for a dungeon of his own instead. No, what Jin was aiming for was something else, and that would be the black smoke beginning to rise up from the boss's corpse. Jin licked his lips in anticipation. He couldn't help but remember the corpse of Barca, the one that slipped through his fingers back in the Red Gate. But my situation is a lot different compared to then. Compared to now, his stats weren't that high back then. Also, killing that jerk took a lot out of him. Only after receiving the aid of 2 Night Grade soldiers, Igris and Iron, did he manage to beat that boss down. However, he was able to kill this shaman comparatively easily today. A week spent inside the demon's castle. This was the definite proof that the events of those short 7 days weren't in vain. Jin issued a new order at the rising, wavering black steam-like smoke. Arise. At the same time, an ominous wind brushed past his 2 cheeks. He instinctively realized it right away. It worked. A radiant smile bloomed on Jin's face. As the soul-tearing scream resounded out, a mage covered in black robes rose up from the shadow of the dead shaman. Huh? Jin sensed something was different about this guy, and so he checked the information window.
Unknown level 1. Elite Knight grade.
An elite knight? Jin was able to confirm that there were 3 earlier, Earlier, Jin was able to confirm that there were 3 grades to... Previously, Jin was able to confirm that there were 3 grades to the Shadow Soldiers. Regular grade, elite grade, and then the knight grade. But now, for the first time ever, the elite knight grade appeared. He began to think that seeing the word elite tacked on to the already existing grade knight, this new guy had to be a realm higher than either Igris or Iron in terms of combat prowess. For sure, I can sense that its magic energy is far greater than that of my 2 knights. As expected of turning the boss of a rank 8 dungeon into a shadow soldier.
Please set the soldier's name.
And also, as expected, he got another system message telling him to name the new guy, now that another Knight Grade Shadow Soldier had appeared. A name, is it? Well, its face was hidden under the hood of the robe now, but still, high orcs and lengthy fangs went hand in hand, no? Right. Let's call it Tusk. He didn't need to issue a separate order. Just thinking about it meant the new guy's name would be set.
Tusk, level 1.
And mind you, Tusk is the name given in both the webcomic and the anime, so despite the light novel having differences in names here and there, I call it what everyone else calls it.
Tusk, level 1. Elite Knight grade.
Instead of question marks, the new name appeared in the information window. If the shaman who remained utterly arrogant right until the moment it died heard this name, the poor guy might have fainted on the spot. But well, who cares? It was already dead anyway. With a satisfied grin on his face, Jin recalled his shadow soldiers. He could now store almost 130 of them. Although it was a bit regrettable, he had to return the rest back to the void. This is much more than enough, though. He stepped off from the altar with a big smile on his face, but then several people rushed over to him. They were hunters from the raid team, Cha Heiyin, and finally... I think the light novel name was Fang, right? Yeah, it says Fang, but I've just been changing names that we've all grown accustomed to. Yeah, but his name, it does say Fang. Even though, because earlier Jin was talking about, like, right, let's name it Fangs. And his name is Fangs. But, you know, I like Tusk. That's the reason why I kind of stuck with that one just a little bit. But yeah, the light novel keeps it as Tusk. Maybe I should just leave it as is and not try to change it so it doesn't confuse people. What you think? I think I shouldn't change it. But yeah. He stepped off from the altar with a big smile on his face, but then several people rushed over to him. They were hunters from the raid team, Cha Heiyin, and finally a group of men wearing matching black business suits. Jin recognized one of the faces among the black suits. Tusk suits him better, then I'ma keep it there. Don't fix what ain't broke. Since when did Chief Wu show up? Seeing the expression on Wu, he probably had witnessed the shadow soldiers in action in full. Mr. Sung Jinu! Sung Jinu hunter name.
Mr. Porter?
Everyone called out to him at the same time. Then they took glances at each other. Well, it was all fine and dandy that he got to fight to his heart's content since he no longer had any reason to hide his powers, but... How am I supposed to get out of this now? Jin looked at all these people surrounding him and scratched the back of his head. And that's the end of Chapter 91. Onwards to Chapter 92. Chapter 92! Wu was the first to react. While everyone else was busy eyeing each other around them, he quickly walked right up to Jin's side, pulled out his identification card, and displayed it proudly for all to see. We're from the Association's Monitoring Division. Didn't matter whether you were a high-ranked hunter or a low-ranked one. You'd inevitably tense up after hearing the name of the Monitoring Division. And this tactic was the right one. It was only for a brief moment, but a hint of nervousness flashed past the expressions of the Hunters Guild members, with the sole exception of Cha Hae-in. Wu seized upon this chance and carried on with what he wanted to say. The identity of Sung Jinu hunter name is being strictly guarded by the Association. It is highly classified information that cannot be revealed publicly. Jin could only stand back in dumbfounded admiration at Wu's skillful, there's another word being used here, but I can't say it. Skillful, wordplay. I'll just say wordplay. Heck, his expression and words looked and sounded so natural that one couldn't help but wonder if he practiced it every morning while looking in the mirror or some such. Whatever the case may be, his intentions definitely got through to the other party. At the same time, Wu sent the slightest hint of a signal to Jin with his eyes. We will assist you with avoiding unnecessary fuss when exiting from this place. Jin had no idea why the Monitoring Division were helping him, but since they were volunteering to take care of the aftermath, was there a reason for him to refuse now? Jin nodded his head. That's what he wanted anyway. The quick-witted subordinates of Wu quickly surrounded Jin like bodyguards. If you have any questions, please send them to the Association. We shall escort Sung Jinu hunter now. Not so subtle implication of, we won't hear any of your objections, was apparent in his voice. All thanks to Wu's hardened attitude, hard enough to shatter a rock even, the members of the Hunters Guild had no choice but to rein in their questions and stay silent. Shall we go? While being escorted by the agents of the Monitoring Division, Jin walked past the hunters. Well, I am grateful, but something felt a bit odd just then. Why did Chief Wu do something no one asked him to do in the first place? Once they got to a sufficient distance away from the members of the Hunters Guild, Jin quietly asked, Why are you doing this all of a sudden? By any chance, are you thinking of signing up with the Hunters Guild? Jin shook his head. As if he knew that such an answer was coming already, Wu quickly made his reply. What you did just now was to display the kind of power that exceeds rank S classification in front of the employees working for the largest, wealthiest guild in South Korea. If you wish to avoid annoying matters in the near future, this method is the best. Indeed, he was right. No one could tell just what lengths the wealthy Hunters Guild might go to secure another rank S hunter. Other hunters would raise their hands and welcome that, but Jin was different. It was the same story for the Hunters Association, too. And so, the interests of both the association, trying to prevent the concentration of too much power to one specific guild, and Jin's, who found the hindrance of the guilds annoying, lined up rather nicely. Since this wasn't one-sided goodwill coming from the other party, but something that would help both sides, Jin didn't feel uncomfortable by the current situation at all. Well, things have become more convenient thanks to the association. Because this matter had been resolved quite nicely in an unexpected manner, Jin could afford to float a thin, nearly imperceptible smile on his lips. But, as they were about to exit from the boss room for good... Hold on! An urgent call came from behind the group. Unintentionally looking back, Jin spotted Son Ki-hoon approaching them while being supported by his big-framed colleague. All of his external wounds had been healed perfectly, but his complexion remained pale as he had lost a lot of blood. It'd be better for him not to move yet, though. Despite Jin's worries, Son Ki-hoon managed to stand before him. He then bowed deeply. Thank you. And he began speaking up his mind without holding anything back. Thank you. We are all still alive. On behalf of the raid team, I'd like to thank you. Well, thanks to you, we are all still alive. On behalf of the raid team, I'd like to thank you. If one believed the words of the monitoring division's hunters, then this young man seemed to be burdened by some kind of circumstances preventing him from revealing himself. With that kind of power, it'd not be too strange if he does have some kind of an unspeakable circumstance. However, he risked his identity being revealed to aid Son Ki-hoon and the rest of the raid team. But was that all? He didn't even ask for any compensation either. He could have easily requested the Hunters Guild for the corpses of the monsters or for the cost of saving the lives of the raid team, but he backed off without saying a thing. So how could he not bow down to this young man? Thank you very much. His emotions now getting raw, Son Kyu bent his back forward 90 degrees once more. That sudden movement caused his aching body to scream out in pain, but he actually found that rather welcoming. His heart had welled up with emotions when he saw Jin kill the monster in the exact same fashion as how he had been toyed around with before. Thinking back to that moment was enough for him to thank this young man a countless number of times. The hunters of the raid team saw their leader bow down to express his gratitude and finally snapped out of their stupor. If it wasn't for that man,
He's our savior, isn't he?
in that case, I shouldn't be standing around like this in a daze. They scrambled to get closer and bowed their heads as well. Thank you, Mr. Port. I mean Hunter Neem.
If it wasn't for you,
Thanks to you, my wife won't become a widow now. A young male hunter who showed off his shaking hands back when Ki-hoon decided to give up on raiding this dungeon approached Jin with a tearful face. Excuse me, Hunter Neem. It's because I'm really grateful, so can I hug you just this once? Once? Can I hug you just this once? Can I hug you just this once? And can you get me some crunch-a-munch? What? That's not even a word. Can I hug you just this once? That's too much, dude. He's starting again. Someone stop him.
well, why don't you hug me instead?
Well, why don't you hug me instead, then? You're giving me the creeps, so let go of me! And then there's just laughing. For the first time ever since entering this particular Rank A dungeon, the members of the raid team got to laugh to their heart's content. Jin stared at these hunters, feeling content inside. He didn't help them out for their flattery or for their praises, but their genuine thanks did automatically bring about a warm smile to his lips. Jin walked over to the female hunter, jumping up and down by the corner. Because she's so small, I nearly failed to spot her. When he pushed forward the memo she gave to him earlier, the female healer, blushed and received it with both of her hands.
Thank you.
Inwardly, though, she was admonishing herself.
Why did I even say those embarrassing things to him back then?
She now had one more reason to kick her sheets before going to bed if and when she ended up remembering today's event in the future. From the perspective of Mr. Porter, who could easily punch the dungeon boss to death, she must have looked really funny when she handed over a memo while saying it contained her final will. She slightly raised her head and found that, thankfully enough, he wasn't sneering at her. No, actually. He began speaking to her in a bit of a strict voice. Miss Healer?
Yes?
The female healer straightened her posture right away like a student being reprimanded for her sloppy behavior. From today onwards, please refrain from placing your personal articles inside the Bray team's luggage. It only serves to increase the volume.
Pardon me?
The female healer became utterly speechless, her eyes opening up to form round buttons. Jin grinned in satisfaction. He said all he wanted to say, and it seemed that the other party had pretty much said everything in her mind, too. So, putting the dazed female healer behind him, he coolly turned around to leave. Let's go. As soon as Jin began walking, the agents on the monitoring division moved together in one unit as if they had been rehearsing it. There was one exception, though. Only Cha Hei-in had failed to say something to Jin, and she tried to reach out to him, but gave up in the end.
I wanted to ask him for his contact numbers.
All she wanted was to ask him if he could find some time to talk to her. However, she might be misunderstood if she asked him that now, what with the current situation not being settled yet. It was then. A female hunter walked over to Cha Hei-in.
Excuse me, Vice Chair? Yes?
When Cha turned around to look, the female hunter pointed to her hand.
Why are you holding a pickaxe?
Cha's gaze drifted towards the head of the pickaxe and her face began blushing rather quickly. She hurriedly lowered the pickaxe and cautiously asked,
You think you found me weird?
The female hunter, a mage, tilted her head and asked back.
Who did?
And that caused not just Cha's face, but even her neck to blush in the deep shade of crimson. When they came out of the gate, Wu took a look at his wristwatch and asked Jin. We're planning to return to the association, but, well, if it's okay with you, why don't you ride along with us and join the association president for dinner? What time is it now? It's 5:15 p.m. Although he was cutting it close, he should be able to arrive at the promised location in time. Jin politely rejected Wu's invitation. I'm sorry. I've already made a prior engagement. It's literally what it says here on the page. Shoo 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 fu fu fu. Shoo 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 fu fu fu. Yu Jin-oh did his very best to maintain his calm by breathing in deeply several times, just like how he saw it in one of the movies. My fated hour is approaching. Indeed, Young Nim's choice would decide Jin-oh's fate. His heart was palpitating faster, and he felt even more nervous compared to a few days ago when he was negotiating with his father for the right to become the Yujin Guildmaster. Let's go back to my original purpose. My original purpose. It was no coincidence that he chose the exact same cafe as the first time he met Young Nim back when to propose his plan. Without Young Nim's help, I wouldn't even be here right now. He began looking around the interior of the cafe while thinking as such, and he was able to see this place in a new light. Quite coincidentally, the table he chose was the exact same one as the last time, too. Ring! Along with the bell, Jin entered the cafe. Young Nim! Jin-oh discovered Jin and shot up from his seat with a welcoming smile on his face. He bowed down as his greeting. Jin performed a similar little greeting with a nod and settled down on the opposite side of Jin-oh. The latter sat down after that. So, what did you call me here for? Jin-oh raised his head, only for his eyes to widen. Young Nim, your clothes! No, this? Jin came running here right after killing the High Orc, so his clothes were understandably dirty. His shirt even sported bloodstains from the dying High Orcs, too. He spoke as if there was nothing to worry about. I was coming straight from a dungeon. That's why. Jin-oh was taken by surprise once more. He was nothing compared to someone like Young Nim. After getting his guildmaster license, all Jin-oh did was to waste his time by drinking and partying. But what did Young Nim do in the meantime? He possessed incredible power, yet he still found time to enter dungeons to further hone his crafts. Suddenly, Jinno felt ashamed of himself.
As expected of young Nim.
And at the same time, he held young Nim in an even higher reverence now. The reason why young Nim didn't bother to wipe away the blood on his clothes was probably because he was confident and forthright enough not to feel the need to hide his training process. Well, the evidence of battle would be more like a Medal of Honor that he earned through his own 2 hands after all. Jinno's expression hardened. He was ready to follow young Nim's decision, regardless of which direction he'd take. So he should come clean and don't hold anything back.
Young Nim? Actually...
Jinno didn't leave anything out and reported everything that happened during the negotiation with his father to Jin. Even the event of Go Myung-hwan's testimony revealing the truth of who saved the hunters of the White Tiger Guild from the Red Gate incident, too. That uncle, doing something unnecessary. Still, that man did that for Jin's benefit, so he couldn't get angry at that. Perhaps that was the reason for Jinno's expression to be a bit more glowing than usual when he was talking about the Red Gate incident. In any case, Jin knew what Jinno was trying to say here. So, in order for you to become the Yujin Guild's new master, you need my help. Is that right? Is that about right? Finishing all he had to say, Jinno calmly waited for Jin's reply. He didn't grow restless or try to sweet-talk like how he would do normally.
Well, I'm talking to young Nim here after all.
Jinno was definitely thinking of leaving everything to young Nim's decision. Remaining silent as long as Jinno's worries were deep, Jin finally raised his gaze. Hey, Jinno. I am... Jinno swallowed his drying saliva. That's our first one! Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling! That's our first swallowed saliva comment of the chapters! The chairman of the Hunters Guild, Choi Jong-in, received a certain call. After answering that, he abandoned what he was doing, entered his private chamber, and began shouting out loudly at the phone. What was that? Sung Jinu was present during our raids yesterday and today? The newly appeared rank S hunter, Sung Jinu. Such a man decided to present himself right before Choi Jong-in's own guild, yet why did he fail to even notice that? It was the same thing as kicking away the golden goose willing to enter his house. It was enough to make him tear his hair out, but... What? He was working for the mining team yesterday and today he was carrying luggage? After hearing that revelation, it did make sense for him to not know. Okay, for the time being, let's not worry about why he did what he did. He got this feeling that sweating over that mystery would only give him a case of a migraine and no tangible answer to chew on. And you say one of many? Yes, it'll probably be one of many. Besides, that wasn't important at all. After White Tiger, us hunters also owe that man now. Indeed, they were indebted to Sung Jinu. Choi wished to talk to that man as equals as much as he could before attempting to scout him, but now his position was no different than that of the White Tiger. Even still, I've learned of the 10th rank S's existence before anyone else, so that's something. That's right. The more pressing issue here was not the fact that his guild received that man's aid, but rather knowing of what his abilities were. Hunter Sung Jinu. What type of hunter was he? As he listened to the explanation coming from the other side of the phone, Choi began talking progressively less and less. The person he was talking to right now, the hunter who took on the role of the raid team's captain, Son Ki-hoon, wasn't a fellow who'd lie about something that didn't happen, or embellish something minor as if it was a big deal. Even then, Choi asked reflexively. Are you telling me the truth? That's all he saw? Doesn't that mean there could be more? If Sung Jinu was that powerful, then... If you compare him to me, then how about it? Although he may have sounded a bit childish just then, there was no better way to ascertain someone's strength than this question. Son Ki-hoon took a little time before continuing on. No, It's impossible. Cha Hae-in was there too? Something felt a bit off, but her being there was not a big problem to worry about. Is there a chance that the dungeon was not an upper grade rank A? Choi was often referred to as the ultimate weapon. From a certain perspective, one could argue that he was being roundly disregarded in this situation, but rather than feeling sour, his heart was pounding harder instead. Me, Cha Hae-in, and then Sung Jin-woo. This was the golden chance that his guild could be renowned in South Korea, no Asia, no the whole world on the back of Sung Jin-woo's abilities alone. Ki-hoon was definitely not someone who'd go beyond his stations and run his mouth off about the guild, so Choi became even more curious about what he might say next. No, it's fine. Please speak. Choi's heart began beating faster. He tried very hard to disguise his trembling voice as he spoke. I'll do my best. In front of the Korean Hunters Association main building, the sea of reporters showing up to cover Lee Min Song's rank assessment test had set up a camp in front of the association building. South Korea's own Lee Min Song, often referred as Asia's top superstar, becoming a hunter. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the cameras from the entire world were being focused here today. What with space being such a premium, the reporters began a war of nerves with each other. Excuse me, we've already reserved this spot. Hey man, are you blind? Can't you see how many people showed up today? Who cares about your spot of mine? Your spot is where you're standing. Dang it. Meanwhile, a full-blown smile was forming on Lee Min Song's face as he stared through the window at the sea of reporters extending as far as the access road while standing inside the association building.
Indeed, this many people showing up sounds about right.
Deliberately wasting time and attracting the attention of the public definitely paid off today. Excuse me, Mr. Min Song. This will be tomorrow's headline, but what do you think about it? South Korea's top newspaper reporter showed Lee Min Song the manuscript for tomorrow's front page and asked,
Don't you think using that as a headline is a bit dull?
You think so?
How about this one? The man who has everything, Lee Min Song. He now grasps power transcending humanity. Well?
But if we use a strong lead-in like that, don't you think a portion of the readers will feel uncomfortable?
Well, I'm not exaggerating here, and besides, no one in their right mind would talk rubbish about me in South Korea anyway. I mean, both the media and my fans are watching closely with their eyes wide open after all.
Okay, got it. We'll go with this one.
I'll be in your care.
Lee Min Song bowed his head good-naturedly, but when he raised it again, a deep frown was etched on his face.
He's going to do what I told him in the end, so why does he have to yap on about so much crap?
It was then 2 imported luxury sedans. Not Subarus, not Toyotas, not Mitsubishis. Sedans. If you want to be all high and mighty and hoity-toity and famous, but also reclusive and also protect your own privacy, you go with a sedan. It was then 2 imported not just any sedans, luxury sedans. Fancy schmancy. Sorry, still being silly. It was then 2 imported luxury sedans arrived at the parking lot of the association. 2 men climbed out of their respective cars almost at the same time. They were none other than Baek Yoon-ho from the White Tiger Guild and Choi Jong-in from the Hunters Guild. Look at that! It's Baek Yoon-ho! Choi Jong-in's here too! The reporters blocking the front entrance of the association building all rushed towards the side of these 2 men. Yoon-ho and Choi both frowned unhappily. What is up with these reporters? Why is it so chaotic today? The noises of camera flashes going off were ringing out loudly. Countless reporters surrounded these 2 men and began their barrage of questions. Are you 2 visiting the association to scout Mr. Lee Min Song?
As the hunters representing South Korea, what do you think about Mr. Lee Min-song potentially retiring from the entertainment industry?
What do you think about Mr. Lee Min-sung's rank?
Please share your thoughts on Mr. Lee Min-sung. The famously short-tempered Baek Yoon-ho waved his hands around as if he found all this annoying.
I'm not here because of that man. I've got nothing else to say.
While Choi emotionlessly stated the facts. Anyone related to this matter would know by now that Mr. Lee Min-sung has already signed up with the Reapers Guild. I'm visiting the association today on an unrelated matter. After hearing answers that didn't meet their expectations, the reporters inwardly grumbled and turned around.
Yeah, what the heck?
And I thought I might have a juicy new story. I got excited for no dang reason. Still, none of them dared to express their dissatisfaction in front of a pair of rank S hunters. Reporters returned to their spots and began their waiting for Lee Min-sung's emergence once more. With tinted windows and a sunroof, and the perfectly chrome grille in the front with the yellow-orange headlights. Specifically those. Not white ones, but yellow-orange, mixed in with the white, I want to say. Once the reporters left them alone, Yoon-ho and Choi met each other's glares. Yoon-ho greeted his counterpart first.
I heard the story. Hunters Guild almost got into a big tangle yesterday, too. Or so I hear.
He even deliberately emphasized the word "too" as well.
Well, it wasn't much of a big tangle compared to how the White Tiger had to lose their newbie.
That yawn snuck up out of nowhere.
Well, it wasn't much of a big tangle compared to how the White Tiger had to lose their newbie rank A.
The two men's war of nerves was just as fierce as the one taking place among the reporters. I was about to call them hunters. Yoon-ho was incensed for a little bit there, but eventually he sighed out softly and spoke up.
In any case, both the hunters and us are in that man's debt.
We really were kissed by Lady Luck yesterday. If he wasn't there, my second elite team would have been wiped out. Even though both men knew that person's name, not mentioning it could be considered the final act in their war of nerves. Choi took a step closer.
That is why, out of principle, I'd like to definitely bring that man over to our guild.
Yoon-ho didn't back down. He and Choi got close enough for their foreheads to nearly butt against each other.
We even had suffered casualties. Looking at the need to replenish our combat force, wouldn't you agree that that person joining us makes more sense?
Just what are you planning to do by recruiting a rank S to shore up your combat force? Are you thinking of invading North Korea or something?
What about you? Since when did you worry about principles and the like to talk about your principles here?
Flames erupted out from the eyes of the two men.
Huh?
Master of the Reapers Guild, Lim Tae-gyu, was arriving at the association building just now to match the timing of the press conference. When he saw those two growling at one another, a mocking smirk formed on his face. Wasn't there an old saying for that? Didn't it go counting chickens before hatching or something like that? For Lim Tae-gyu, this sure was an exciting development, since he always lost out to their two guilds when trying to secure resources until now. He did his best to not let the corners of his lips arch up and approach the two men. Oi, two guild chairmen over there. I hope you aren't acting like that over my Min-sung, no? That's not the voice I'm going to give him. Oi, two guild chairmen over there. I hope you aren't acting like that over my Min-sung, no? And then both Baek and Choi, both Yoon-ho and Choi's heads spun at the same time towards Lim Tae-gyu. It was hard to tell who was first, really.
What the heck is up with this moron?
I don't give a rat's behind about this Lee Min-sung or Lee Min-gun or whatever. Lim Tae-gyu flinched in surprise and took a step back when two rather terrifying glares landed squarely on him. What is up with these two jerks all of a sudden? What's this? Choi Jong-in and Baek Yoon-ho too? Oh, what's this? Choi Jong-in and Baek Yoon-ho too?
Lee Min-sung grinned deeply. He was already familiar with Chairman Lim Tae-gyu when they met during the signing of the contract. Min-sung signing up with the Reapers Guild, which had been criticized for being a shell of its former glory, while disregarding the country's top two guilds, was a calculated move on his part.
I mean, with this, I'll enjoy the image of someone willing to stand up for the underdogs.
Crudely speaking, celebrities survived on their public image, and Min-sung was really meticulous about maintaining his.
The best guilds in Korea are fighting over me.
He wasn't thinking of carrying on this hunter lifestyle for long, but still, that sight naturally made him feel even better about himself. Soon afterwards, his manager entered the reception area. Min-sung, they say they are ready now. Let's go and do the press conference.
All right.
The manager took the lead. He opened the glass front entrance and allowed Lee Min-sung to emerge from the association building. Camera flashes exploded in a scary cacophony of endless shutter clicks. As he would do every day, Min-sung formed a fake smile towards hundreds of lenses surrounding him. It was then. Jin had finally arrived at the front of the association. Just like he had been told, he was stopped by the association 3 days later. Just like he had been told, he was stopping by the association 3 days later.
Why is it so noisy here?
However, it didn't look like he'd be able to enter the association at all under the current circumstances. Of course, there were plenty of ways to go around these people, such as using stealth, or jumping over the reporters, or even by finding a back entrance. But then again, his reevaluation test had been reserved in advance 3 days ago, so he didn't feel like going through the back entrance just to avoid this wall of reporters.
It's not like I committed a crime or something anyways.
He had no reason not to use the front door at all. Jin then proceeded to push away the tightly packed throngs of reporters and made a path for himself.
I'm coming through.
Oi, what are you doing? What the heck?
What's wrong with you?
This was the physical strength of a rank S hunter. Reporters were all helplessly pushed away, deep frowns etched on their faces. The path forward was opening up in the blink of an eye, and Jin could walk up the steps leading to the front entrance of the association. However, even before he could take another step, a large, muscular dude suddenly blocked Jin's path. Oi! He was Lee Min-sung's manager. His eyebrows rose up as he growled menacingly. Who the heck are you? You work for the association or something? Jin didn't bother to avert his gaze and met this manager's glare squarely before shaking his head. Would you look at this jerk? The manager's thick eyebrows quivered. Can't you see all these reporters behind you? Jin took a short glance at the reporters. They were all shooting him with unhappy glares. Even Jin could understand that they were trying to do a press conference here. However, it wasn't as if they had rented out the whole entrance, now had they? A private individual had no right to chase away the reporters, and conversely, they had no right to chase him away either. That was common knowledge. There were plenty of eyes watching, and Jin didn't particularly want to raise his voice here, so he was going to ignore this idiot and walk right by. But at that moment... Go back to where you came from. You can't go through here. Get lost, punk. The manager blocked the path again and tried to shove Jin's chest away. The light in Jin's eyes changed immediately. What was that? The manager was taken by a huge surprise. He was a melee-type rank D awakened and pushed this young punk away with the full intention of embarrassing him, but the guy didn't even budge from the spot as if his legs were nailed to the ground. The manager had used enough force that would have injured a regular person greatly. Jin also knew that fact very well. That was why he wordlessly glared, and that alone was enough to gradually drain the manager's face of all color. What the heck? What's the matter with that guy?
What happened? Are they gonna fight?
The reporters present all sensed the atmosphere becoming rather strange, and they became noisy quite quickly. Cold sweat was pouring out of the manager. If there was no one watching, he'd have conceded already and stepped aside. However, never mind the reporters. His employee Lee Min-sung was watching him from behind at the moment. Min-sung walked closer to the manager and whispered with a deep frown,
Young, what are you doing? Hurry up and get rid of this loser already.
Sure thing. If he showed a shameful sight here, then he'd lose his job without a doubt. The manager's expression crumpled unsightly and he raised his voice up high. You can't pass by here, so get lost already!
And just who said you can block the entrance like this?
The reply didn't come from the manager's front, but from his back. The manager quickly spun his head around. The Hunters Association president, Go Gun-hee, stood tall in front of the glass doors. The eyes of the reporters grew extra round. I saw round and thought wide. The eyes of the reporters grew extra round. They were so shocked that they even forgot to operate their cameras.
Go Gun-hee? President Go Gun-hee's here?
The once chaotic, bustling atmosphere immediately cooled down with the entrance of someone completely unexpected. Go walked right up to the steps and spoke up.
This gentleman is my guest.
And then Go stared at Lee Min-sung.
I hope you haven't forgotten who gave you the permission to hold a press conference in this place, Mr. Lee Min-sung.
Min-sung recovered his wits right away.
Of course, sir.
The first day as a hunter, he falls out of favor with the association president and loses the location of the press conference. Min-sung couldn't afford to suffer such a humiliation when there were so many eyes watching him right now. Min-sung frowned and quickly signaled his manager. The burly guy bowed slightly to both Go and Jin and voluntarily stepped aside.
Please follow me, Sung Jinu Huntanim.
Even until Jin disappeared in the association building under the guidance of Go Gun-hee, the gathered reporters couldn't hide their confusion at all. Noisy.
What was that all about? Who was that man and why is the association president personally coming out to greet him?
Does anyone know who that man is? Reporters felt frustrated and raised their voices, but there was no one answering them. And that is the end of Chapter 92. Onwards to Chapter 93! Chapter 93! Min-sung's expression stiffened right away. A mysterious man who cut through the throngs of reporters, and then the association president Go Gun-hee who came out to personally escort that man into the building.
How does President Go's schedule look like? How does President Go's schedule look like for the rest of today?
I hear he canceled everything for the morning.
Are you telling me that the association president canceled the whole morning's worth of appointments for that man?
Noisy. This place had become too restless after those two men's sudden entrance, and the current situation was no longer suitable for holding a press conference. But just how much effort did Lee Min-sung pour in for today's event? He shot a glare at his manager with an expression of a man chewing on insects.
Darn idiot of a manager who can't even take care of something so simple.
The manager couldn't meet that glare and powerlessly lowered his head. Now that Min-sung had become a rank A awakened, the manager couldn't even win against him in physical strength anymore. He had no choice but to cower accordingly. Min-sung glared at his manager for a long time before his head naturally spun towards his side.
Q! Darn it.
Like throwing salt. I wanted to make sure I was reading that correctly.
Q! Darn it.
Like throwing salt on the wound, the camera crew from the news stations were getting ready to leave. They were supposed to broadcast everything live. If this distracted spectacle got on the airwaves and was broadcast to the rest of the country, then there was a good chance that all of Min Song's hard work to increase his brand's value by becoming a rank A hunter would go down the drain for good. However, the association president Go's entrance caused too much of a ripple to calm the mood down and restart the press conference. Just why did someone so big have to appear at such an important time?
Isn't there a way to reverse this situation?
The quick-witted Min Song began kicking his brain into gear.
Right. Only a big something can reverse a situation like this.
These reporters didn't come here because they wanted to find out about his feelings regarding the rank assignment test or some such. No, they came here to find out what the top star Min Song's hunter ranking would be, as well as what his future plan was after he got his license. If he gave them what they wanted, then everything would return to order.
I should start the assessment test ahead of schedule.
A sly smile. Men like that make you sick, throwing around their childish behavior because they don't get their way. Whew. Yeah, those types of individuals are sad to witness, sad to hear talk, and they think that everything that comes out of their mouth is genius, well thought out, insightful, wise. Insert anything that the opposite of these people would do, and they just broadcast it for everyone to see. It's so sad. The sheer stupidity from these types of people. It really is. Because a real man is not going to get all mad and upset just because he doesn't get his way. He rolls with the punches that comes with maturity and just keeps going. You don't throw a tantrum. Tantrums are for kids. And even then, they grow out of it. Well, if you raise them right. You raise them right. But, sorry, I'm getting off track here.
I should start the assignment test ahead of schedule.
A sly smile formed on Min Song's face. Don't worry, we'll have plenty of time to talk more, kitty. Indeed, his ability to come up with schemes on the fly, something others around him had already acknowledged him for, remained rather exceptional.
Excuse me, everyone. Allow me to go have a quick chat regarding my schedule today with the association's representatives.
Blurting that nonsense to the reporters. You're bad? No, you're fine. You're fine. It's not like my readings of Solo Leveling are just perfect readings without any interruptions or me deviating from it in any way. That's what makes this unique, and that's what makes it harder for certain organizations to say, "Oh, you're copying this from the book." I don't remember talking about food or whatever I was talking to my audience with in the audiobook of said things. From as far as I know, Solo Leveling doesn't have an audiobook out, so yeah. But ever since what happened with T-Bait and me in this channel, I've been kinda careful. But you're fine, kitty, don't even worry about it. Blurting that nonsense to the reporters, Min Song then headed to the main association building. It was not to discuss the change of schedule, but to declare his intentions.
I mean, you have any idea how much my dad donates to the association?
Oh, Lord, we have a Nepo baby now. He's full of nepotism. He's got a silver spoon. He's a silver spooner. Someone beat this man down.
I mean, you have any idea how much my dad donates to the association? The association or not, they should grovel accordingly before me.
Unfortunately...
Huh?
Just before he could push open the glass front door, hunters from the monitoring division rushed out first and he was pushed back instead. They stood in a line to block off the front entrance.
What the heck is this now?
Min Song's forehead creased up. He quickly checked the name tag attached to one of the men's chests.
Section Chief Wu Jin Cho, Hunters Association Monitoring Division.
Min Song questioned Wu right away.
What's the meaning of this? Why are you blocking the entrance?
Wu's sunglass-covered eyes stared down at Lee Min Song. Currently, Another awakened is going through the process of the rank reassignment test. No one will be allowed to enter the building until 11 o'clock, when the test is scheduled to end.
What did you just say?
By another awakened, was this man referring to that young man who followed the association president into the building not too long ago? Lee Min-sung took a look at his watch. The time now was 10:30 in the morning. 11 o'clock was the originally scheduled time for his rank assignment test. No one was allowed to enter before that? Min-sung's scheme to take the test ahead of schedule to reverse the situation was about to blow up in his face. At first, he spoke in a polite tone of voice.
Please, don't be like this and let me in. I have something to discuss with the related department of the association.
I'm sorry. Wu shut his mouth up with that single short sentence. With his frustration boiling over, Min-sung couldn't hold back any longer and his true colors slowly surfaced to the fore.
Look here, mister. Don't you know who I am? I'm Lee Min-sung, man. Lee Min-sung!
Min-sung's tone of voice became sharp and abrasive as if he could no longer take this crap, but still, Wu showed no sign of budging. Mihai, the legendary! It's good to see you. We are currently on chapter 93 right now, while with Lee Min-sung trying to get into the building after they close up shop. Lee Min-sung's tone of voice became sharp and abrasive, as if he could no longer take this crap, but still, Wu showed no sign of budging.
Ha!
Min-sung spat out a dumbfounded groan. What's the current count? Only one. Only one swallowed saliva count thus far.
Ha!
Min-sung spat out a dumbfounded groan.
Oi, you know that Eugen Construction is the biggest sponsor of the Hunters Association, right?
The corner of Min-sung's lips arched up.
Vice chairman of the Eugen Construction, Lee Won-gyu, is my father, okay? And do you see all these people behind me?
Min-sung pointed towards the sea of reporters below the entrance steps.
You think you can treat the son of Eugen Construction's vice chairman this badly in front of these many reporters? You think you can handle the fallout?
Solo Leveling does have an audiobook. I'll... Well, with that in mind, I guess, well, that's something. Now you got me thinking. Now you got me thinking. I'm not getting fearful or anything. I just checked. I'm sorry. Don't feel like you gotta apologize. Don't feel like you gotta apologize. I need to be careful with this as well then. It is what it is, but I also need to be careful with this as well. So, with that in mind, we'll continue this. We'll continue this particular session, but yeah. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Thank you. And once again, you didn't do anything wrong, but I want to thank you for bringing this to my attention. Because a decision may have to be made to avoid something in the future. We're just going to be real here. Yeah, we're just going to be real here. Some decision may have to be made just in case, because if it does have an audiobook, then, yeah. But we'll continue. We'll continue with this particular session, but after this, I may need to think about it. I may need to think about whether I will continue or not. Because I don't want another situation. At least with T-Bait, they told me I have to take it down or risk a strike. Last time I got a strike, and my only strike, they flagged me because of my thumbnail alone, and they didn't even give me an option to. They gave me an option to repeal, but they ignored it. So, yeah. After this session, a decision will definitely have to be made about whether I tackle the rest of the light novel on the channel or not. Just to really be on the safe side. Just to be on the safe side. But for now, we continue. Let's keep going.
You think you can treat the son of Eugen Construction's vice chairman this badly in front of these many reporters? You think you can handle the fallout?
Wu's reply was pretty simple. Yes, we can.
What?
Min Song was even more dumbfounded now. Just who the heck was that young man from the association president to personally escort him inside and block off the entrance building for a measly rank assignment test? And letting a section chief gopher, someone not even that high up in the food chain like a head of the department, to do whatever the heck he pleased. Min Sung's hands were placed on his waist as he began questioning in anger.
Just who the heck is this another awakened supposed to be that the association is willing to bend over backwards like this?
Only then did Wu remove his sunglasses. If I were to tell you that. When Wu's sharp, scary eyes resembling a bird of prey were finally revealed, Min Song unwittingly took a step back. Wu continued to glare at Min Song and quietly spoke. Do you think you can handle the fallout instead, Mr. Lee Min Song? See, this is the reason why I love Wu. I love Wu. Even when I saw him within the webcomic, I just knew Wu was a him-type dude. I just knew it. The inside of the main building was rather empty. There was no one waiting to take their rank assignment test inside the hallway, with only a smattering of association employees going about their usual business. This unusual situation was probably related to the reason why all those reporters were camping outside.
Please, come this way.
All right. Jin was about to follow after Go Gun-hee's guidance and enter the measurement room, but then spotted two somewhat familiar-looking faces.
Huh?
Baek Yoon-ho and Choi Jong-in were sitting on the waiting room chairs facing the measurement room. That was where smartly dressed headhunters of various smaller guilds could be found 3 days ago. Wu is a beast in his own right. Yes, he is. Wu is just a smooth dude. I really hope that news you talked about, like a premium solo leveling game dropping for the in development for PS5. I hope it is still ongoing. I hope it has been progressing because I would love to play Wu in an actual console solo leveling game. I would. When their gazes met, both men stood up from their seats and bowed lightly. Jin reciprocated the greeting and walked past the hallway. As they walked down on the passageway, a soft smile formed on Go's lips.
Those two men, they have been waiting for you for almost an hour.
The leaders of 2 guilds that represented South Korea in the world stage had shown up 1 hour early to wait for the reevaluation result. Perhaps he had read Jin's expression, because Go Gun-hee continued to explain in a calm voice.
A new Rankess hunter has appeared after 2 long years. And besides, Choi has heard of your powers, so he should even be more anxious at the moment.
Jin slowly nodded his head.
Oh my! Association president!
The association employees they met on the way all politely greeted Go and stared at Jin with mystified eyes.
Who is that man that necessitates our association president to personally guide him? Could he be someone really important?
How can someone that young know our president? Go had never shown up to personally receive guests, even when a government minister came to visit. So the fact that he was doing so precisely So the fact that he was doing precisely that had, sorry, I misread, had shocked the association employees to no end. Let me do that again. Go had never shown up to personally receive guests even when a government minister came to visit. So the fact that he was doing precisely, instinctively I want to say doing so precisely, but it's just the fact that he was doing precisely that had shocked the association employees to no end. That's because of my own verbal grammar quirks. I want to insert words in there that I'm used to saying next to them when they aren't even there. That's on me. Go spoke while keeping his eyes fixed to the front.
I heard what happened yesterday.
Go's expression was one of enjoyment for some reason. As a matter of fact, he was indeed feeling really excited. Because his expectation of Jin being a different type of hunter from the rest proved to be right on the money. That was why. When he heard about Jin's actions from Wu, sweat formed on Go's hands as if he was personally there, witnessing everything.
Yes, he does have incredible powers, but also,
he found Jin's actions afterwards even more to his liking. Including the boss, he had almost single-handedly cleared the dungeon all by himself, yet the young man had shown not one trace of greed over the loot found within. If Jin's real aim was to fight monsters and protect other people, rather than become famous and make lots of money, then the association was fully prepared to support him in every conceivable manner. Because that goal lined up perfectly with the purpose of the association's existence.
if it's possible, I wish I could bring him into the association with whatever means necessary. But
he couldn't do that now, could he? Just like what the young man told him before, entering the association would mean he'd have nearly zero opportunity to fight against the monsters. And from what Go had heard about Jin's powers, it was way too good to be wasted outside dungeons. Soon they arrived at the examination. Soon they arrived at the examination area, located deeper within the building.
before the re-evaluation can take place, we must confirm your abilities first and set the new classification for you.
Jin already knew that. Hunters were classified as a melee, mage, healing, or even support type according to their abilities, and performed their roles where they were needed the most. The association employee waiting at the examination area bent his back forward 90 degrees to greet Go. The way this is worded where it says bent his back forward, you instinctively think like bent his back forward 90 degrees, and you'll kind of think like, wait, is he bending his back 90 degrees? But no, he's bending it forward, so why not just say he bowed forward 90 degrees? But then again, grammar from the author, so I may not see it that way, being American and all. So that might just be a little bit of a national quirk. The association employee waiting at the examination area bent his back forward 90 degrees to greet Go and took over, guiding Jin from him. Please, this way. Jin stepped up to the middle of the examination area. Its interior layout much resembled an indoor gymnasium commonly found everywhere. If there was one thing different from those gymnasiums, then it'd be the fact that one could sense powerful fluctuations of magic energy coming from the walls as well as from the floor. Magic had been utilized to reinforce the structure in case something went wrong. The examiner asked Jin, "What kind of ability can you use?" The association president didn't return to his office immediately and, while standing in the far corner, stared at the examination process with a great deal of interest. This was the reason why he came to guide Jin personally. He wanted to confirm Jin's powers with his own eyes as quickly as possible. "Well, I can do this." Jin called out a single shadow soldier. The examiner was greatly taken by surprise. Seriously speaking, how could anyone stay composed when a soldier decked out in jet black armor suddenly rose up from the ground? Jin deliberately chose the lowest level one out of his regular soldiers, but still, the dude emitted intense pressure that most normal people found hard to endure.
This
Is this your summoned creature? You can control a summon? The examiner's voice was trembling noticeably. Jin had half a mind to helpfully examine that his soldier was definitely not dangerous, but he formed a pitying expression while making his reply.
Well, something like that.
In that case, how many summoned creatures can you control?
Well, it would be useless to lie, so...
Indeed, the number of eyewitnesses who saw his shadow soldiers yesterday was nearly 20. Jin spoke up a slightly reduced number of soldiers sealed inside his shadow through his skill.
It's around 100 or so.
The examiner's eyes went extra round at the number 100.
100?
Yes. On the other hand, Jin remained nonplussed. At the same time, as he stared at the shadow soldier, Go's eyes were glittering brightly.
100 of those.
At a glance, that soldier possessed around the same amount of magic energy as a rank B hunter. If that young man could summon 100 of those soldiers, then one simply had to concede that his powers had already exceeded a regular large guild's combat force. Truthfully, that was an incredible ability. Jin could feel Go's passionate gaze burning up on his skin. He breathed a sigh of relief after confirming the reactions of the surroundings.
Well, if one regular soldier can elicit this sort of reaction, then...
He should thank his lucky stars that he didn't choose to call out the higher-level soldier among his flock, Igris, or the boss-level creature he managed to poach yesterday, Fangs. Or to the more common people who read the webcomic and seen the anime, Tusk. Whatever the case may be, this was enough to prove the type of ability he had possessed.
In that case, Sung Jinu Hunter Neem, you're a mage type.
The examiner studiously jotted down something on the recording document and raised his head up, while looking rather satisfied.
We can now head to the measurement room.
Jin held the newly issued hunter license in his hand. It said Sung Jinu, rank S, mage type. Even though his face was plastered on the photo box, he still found it hard to believe.
Very good. It's been smooth sailing until now.
Jin quickly shoved his new hunter license inside his wallet. When he got to the end of the corridor, the waiting duo of Baek Yoon-ho and Choi Jong-in approached him.
Mr. Sung Jinu, can we have a chat?
Sung Jinu Hunter Neem,
I'm sorry, I'm pressed for time at the moment.
Jin ignored them both and quickly walked towards the glass door.
Uh?
Baek Yoon-ho raised his worried voice.
If it was me, I wouldn't use that exit.
Is he trying to imply that the sweet deals we prepared for this occasion will make me regret walking out of this door or something? Is he Oh wait, no, that's Jin.
If it was me, I wouldn't use that exit.
Is he trying to imply that the sweet deals he prepared for this occasion will make me regret walking out of this door or something?
Jin wasn't interested regardless of what was being offered, so he continued to ignore Yoon-ho's dissuasion and push the glass door wide open. When that happened, the reporters that had managed to climb up the steps to push and shove against the monitoring division's agents began clicking their cameras non-stop with flashes exploding brightly all around him.
What the heck is this?
Jin became utterly speechless at this blinding explosion of lights. As usual, Jinna stopped by the school's tuck shop after the third period ended and bought herself a pack of banana milk. I can't have anything banana related, I'm allergic. Donkey Kong and all these people can eat banana bread and eat banana pudding, and I can't have nothing. As usual, Jenna stopped by the school tuck shop after the third period ended and brought herself a pack of banana milk. There was still around 1 hour to go to lunch. If she didn't fill herself up temporarily with something like milk, for instance, she'd be unable to concentrate during the class. And sure enough... Love the flashes sounds? Thank you. Thank you. I hope they're leagues better than me attempting a screeching van. Leagues better than that. You guys will never let me live that down. Already, her remorseless stomach was noisily demanding for more fuel to be put in there. Jenna rubbed her hungry tummy and was about to enter her classroom. But then one of her friends grabbed her wrist, a shocked expression clearly visible on that girl's face.
Jenna! What?
With her friend shocked like this, even Jenna got shocked alongside her for no reason.
It's your Opa! He's on TV right now! What? Why is my Opa?
Jin felt his heart tumble to the pit of his stomach. Did he get injured again? If not, could it be even worse? The friend dragged Jenna by her wrist inside the classroom, as if she didn't want to waste time explaining anymore. Jenna's eyes immediately shifted over to the large TV located next to the blackboard. And there was...
Opa?
The moment Jenna saw the TV screen, the banana milk in her hand fell to the floor. And that is the end of Chapter 93. Onwards to Chapter 94. Chapter 94. 10 minutes prior, in front of the Hunters Association building. When it clearly became impossible to take his rank evaluation test ahead of schedule, Min Song sensed the looming crisis, and in the end decided to drop a bombshell. Excuse me, I, Lee Min Sung, will retire from the entertainment industry regardless of the test result, and I shall pledge my service as a hunter for the betterment of the public. This was his last hurrah after reviving the atmosphere of the press conference that had cooled off from the sudden entrance of Gogun-e. This effect was immediately noticeable. What? Lee Min Sung is going to retire? Regardless of what his rank is? Right away, the atmosphere became frenzied. Countless cameras were now pointing at Lee Min Sung, and questions from excited reporters poured down on him nonstop. Mr. Lee Min Sung, please look this way. Are you telling us that you'll abandon the title of Asia's top movie star and choose the life of a low-ranked hunter if need be? Are you willing to give up on everything you built up as a successful actor?
Yes, very good.
Min Song was pleased as punch at all the attention being focused on him again.
Even if the result is bad and I end up with a low rank, I wish to repay all the love everyone... Even if the result is bad and I end up with a low rank, I wish to repay all the love everyone has shown me by fighting the monster threats.
Of course, he was lying through his teeth. Just 2 years. He was thinking of helping out with the Reaper Guild's public image as its most famous Rank A hunter for only 2 years, while enjoying the sky-high annual pay package. This was the best method to silence those voices raising issues with him avoiding the draft with his father's help, as well as a few distracting noises rising up here and there recently, all in one fell swoop. Climbing down from the summit to protect the ordinary citizens while risking his own life. This was the greatest opportunity for him yet, to achieve that often talked about lifetime guarantee against criticism status. Enjoying the taste of everything finally going according to his plan, Lee Min Song continued on with the press conference.
And with the Master of Reapers Guild, Chairman Lim Tae-gyu, who shares my wish, I...
And so, as the gathered reporters were listening to Min Song's future aspirations... Someone's phone suddenly went off. The surrounding reporters glared at the phone's owner, and he quickly killed the phone before lowering his head in apology several times. Thanks to that, the press conference was slightly interrupted, but fortunately enough, it was not a permanent interruption in the end. Min Song also pretended to not hear it and continued on. However, this time, someone else's phone went off.
What the heck?
Whose phone is that? Isn't it a common sense to switch it off before conference? Oh wait,
Whose phone is that?
Isn't it a common sense to switch it off before a conference? Turn it off, now! Thinking that this might be a good chance to earn himself some extra brownie points, Min Song beamed brightly and spoke up. Oh wait, no wait, that's not even him speaking. What the heck?
Whose phone is that? Isn't it a common sense to switch it off before a conference?
Turn it off, now! Thinking that it might be a good chance to earn himself some extra brownie points, Min Song beams brightly and spoke up.
I'm fine with it. So why don't we continue after you answer your urgent call?
Min Song's spontaneous response elicited jovial laughter from here and there, but who knew that was merely the beginning? Seemingly from everywhere, mobile phones were singing out in a messy chorus of noises.
What's this? What's this? What the heck? Even me?
The first reporter who switched his phone off first realized that something was very wrong. Meanwhile, the eyes of the reporters were growing extra wide after confirming the contents of the call.
You got a call from the association?
Why are you only telling me this now? Reporters present hurriedly accessed the association's website. It was then they discovered the new Rank S hunter's photo and his name being uploaded there as if everything had been prepared beforehand. The announcement date for that person's evaluation result just so happened to be today.
Wait, but didn't they say something about the measurement room not being available in the morning?
It wasn't because of Lee Min-sung?
In that case, the reason for the measurement room being emptied out wasn't because of Lee Min-sung's rank evaluation, but this new Rank S hunter?
And then the face of a certain man flashed by in the heads of all the reporters present.
Could he have been?
That young man who followed Association President Go into the building. He was the only one to have access the measurement room today. If they are all going inside now, wouldn't they be able to take that man's pictures?
Everyone?
With their eyes now resembling those of a starving predator, reporters ignored Lee Min-sung and rushed towards the association building. Rumble! When Wu signaled with his eyes, hunters from the monitoring division spread out their arms and formed a human barricade.
Let us in!
A rank S has emerged, right? Aren't you supposed to announce this ahead of time?
Just get out of the way, will ya?
Reporters violently pounced forward, but they couldn't overcome the wall created by the agents of the monitoring division, where every single member was a hunter. I can just picture this. They're all trying to get their way in, and they're trying to force their way in, and then every one of them has the strength to literally grab a reporter by the scruff of his neck and throw him out of the crowd if need be. Because you ain't getting past the monitoring division.
What the heck is this?
What the heck is this? Having been forgotten by everyone in an instant, Min Song in his flustered face ran over to his burly manager. Mr. Manager pushed forward the screen of his phone with what he discovered only a second ago.
A Rank S?
Min Song became completely dazed.
A Rank S showed up today? Of all days?
He wanted to receive the attention and adulations of the world by becoming a Rank A hunter, but to think that a Rank S hunter would pop up out of nowhere and ruin everything. Min Song shook his head. Hard.
No, wait. Something doesn't feel right here.
Seriously now, a Rank S wasn't a cup of instant coffee one could buy in a vending machine with a couple of change. Now was it? Maybe these reporters knew something about what was happening right now. It was at that point that Min Song spotted a reporter still talking to someone on the phone while belatedly climbing up the steps. He was none other than the exact same reporter who sought out Min Song's opinion regarding tomorrow's headline earlier.
Excuse me, Reporter Eam?
Even though Min Song's voice sounded urgent, Reporter Eam simply walked past while responding in haste. Mr. Lee Min Song, I'll get in touch a little bit later, okay?
Excuse me, Reporter Eam, wait!
Min Song got to eavesdrop on the contents of the call as the Reporter Eam's back gradually distanced itself away from him.
That's right. I'm telling you to go with the headline of Tears of Rank E, now Joys of Rank S for tomorrow.
Min Song scanned his vicinity with energyless eyes. There was no one around him now. He fell down to his knees.
What is this?
While he remained on the ground muttering to himself in dejection, the front entrance to the association was abruptly pushed open, and South Korea's 10th rank S hunter revealed himself. Jin's eyes opened up super wide. What the heck is this? The camera lenses captured in full Jin standing in front of the entrance, and behind him, Baek Yoon-ho with a rueful expression, and Choi Jong-in and his bitter smile. It was now lunchtime. The hunters of the mining team had ended the morning's operation and were sitting around to enjoy their lunch. Mining might have been their main role, but since there was no threat of rockfall or cave-in, the mood of the team was rather carefree. Some hunters were lying on the floor resting, having gobbled up their meals in the blink. Some hunters were busy giggling to themselves while checking out their phones. A few hunters were even enjoying cold alcoholic beverages while sharing snacks among themselves. Huh? One of the hunters playing with his phone cried out in surprise and hurriedly raised his upper body up. Hey! Isn't this Mr. Song? Lee Song-goo's ears perked up. Hey, it is him! Mr. Song's on the news! Indeed, Lee Song-goo hadn't heard wrong. I knew it! With his face considerably flush red after ingesting 3 cups of alcohol, Song-goo ran to where his colleagues were as if he had been waiting for this. Even while he was doing that, his mouth continued to operate without rest. I knew it from the moment that bastard glared at me. Let me see for myself. Let me see for myself what horrible things that insolent bastard committed now. Perhaps Song-goo's voice was too loud. Mr. Song did what? Did Mr. Song commit a crime or something? Mr. Song did what? Did Mr. Song commit a crime or something? Including Foreman Bay, all of the mining team's hunters in the rear vicinity gathered in one spot. Jin's face filled up the palm-sized screen of the mobile phone, and just below that, large subtitles flashed by. Following after Hong Dong-suk and Cha Hae-in, South Korea's 10th rank S hunter, Mr. Sung Jin-woo, has just now... Having discovered Jin, Lee Song-goo's eyes began trembling. In front of the private office of Eugene Construction's chairman, standing in front of the door, Jin-oh let out a short sigh. He opened the door, and as it smoothly glided inward, he also raised his head to spot his father going through several documents, not bothering to even turn his head this way. Come inside. Even though he made his reply, Yu Myung-hwan continued to scribble his signatures on the documents. Jin-oh stood next to Myung-hwan. The father briefly raised his head to confirm the son's visage before continuing on with his work. Dad's still the same, I see. In the past, Jin-oh would have been suppressed by his father's being like this and run off. Utterly unable to say what he wanted to say. However, it was different now. I'd like to speak to you about something, Father. Is it regarding Hunter Sung Jin-woo? Yes. Myung-hwan finally raised his head up. All right, so what It was then. Myung-hwan's phone suddenly went off. Hold on. Myung-hwan raised his hand and stopped Jin-oh's words. Checking the message on the phone screen, Myung-hwan's eyes grew wide just a little. My dad can get surprised too? Jin-oh tilted his head slightly. There's something you should see. Pardon? Rather than providing an answer, Myung-hwan operated the remote and switched the giant TV mounted on one of the walls instead. A breaking news piece immediately came up on the screen. Yes, it has been confirmed just now. The hunter who was evaluated as rank S earlier today is a reawakened, someone who has gone through the second awakening process after his initial one. His name is Mr. Sung Jin-woo, who used to work for the association as a rank E previously. The reporter's excited voice easily conveyed the current atmosphere of the location. Jin-woo had been listening disinterestedly, but when he heard the name Sung Jin-woo, he was taken by surprise. The screen changed after that. It was now showing the emotionless face of someone he was quite familiar with, busy surveying the immediate surroundings. It was none other than his young Nim. I'm sure of it. Young Nim is feeling irritated right now. Thanks to Jin-woo sticking around young Nim for a while, it became pretty easy to tell what he was thinking about simply through his expressions. But besides all that, he was a rank S? Jin-woo was well aware of his young Nim being great, but that greatness had far exceeded his own imagination. At the same time, even though he possesses such incredible power, he enters dungeons every day to train himself even further? A sense of awe rushed in, fast. As a person who used to guard his side, Jin-woo's heart swelled with pride as Jin's name got continuously mentioned on the TV. Boop, boop. The TV was switched off and young Nim's face also disappeared from the view. Jin-woo formed a wistful expression. Okay, continue. Father was telling Jin-woo to continue with what he wanted to say. As he had practiced beforehand, Jin-woo bowed down hard and spoke. My apologies, Father. I couldn't change young Nim's mind. Young Hwan's expression hardened. Okay. What did Hunter Sung Jin-woo say while rejecting your offer? Well, young Nim said. Jin-woo hesitated slightly, but he slightly raised his head and spoke. He wants to make his own guild, so if I was interested in the vice master spot, I should come over instead. Jin-woo thought that father would get angry or ignore that suggestion altogether, but instead, his expression was solidly frozen up. And then, grin. Myung Hwan chuckled without making a sound. Someone widely known for his poker face, Chairman Yu Myung Hwan had actually revealed a change of expression in front of his own son. What is my dad doing? Jin-woo couldn't dare to ask what was happening, so all he could do was to avert his gaze this way and that. Myung Hwan spoke. That smile now erased from his lips. Do you know why I'm trying to establish the Yujin Guild? Is it because there's money to be made in the hunter business? No, it's not. Myung Hwan's tone of voice was resolute, unwavering. We have more than enough money right now. You think I'll try something that could put us at odds with other large guilds just for the sake of chasing after a couple more bucks? Was he trying to imply that money wasn't the reason? Jin-woo's eyes widened. But if not that, then... Myung Hwan carefully put the pen down. It's in order to protect ourselves. Myung Hwan's serious, dignified eyes caused Jin-woo to swallow his dry saliva in nervousness. That's two! Now. Hunters are growing in power every day, and it's not uncommon to see a single person possessing enough power to rival a country's military might. For instance, the world's most powerful hunters seen as already on the level of exercising power equal to that of a country's entire government. Myung Hwan was talking about those people. I hear that some hunters already rule smaller nations like kings. How long do you think that the rule of law and governmental authority will keep us safe under the current situation? Myung Hwan's voice was getting heavier. However, as Jin-woo was listening to this explanation, it suddenly dawned on him that he was actually feeling happy at the moment. Why was that? That was because his father included him too and said we instead. Indeed, Jino felt happy because he thought he got to glimpse for the first time another side of his father. Myung-hwan's explanation continued on. I wished to establish a guild and gather trustworthy hunters to our side, not because I need more money, or that I am searching for talented individuals, but it's all to find those hunters who we can trust as fellow human beings, as well as for us to rely on their strength. And then, a nearly imperceptible smile formed on Myung-hwan's face.
Looks like you already found someone like that, haven't you?
Yes, father. Jino replied right away. It was a bit hard to tell where his father was going with this, but well, it was true regardless that Jino could trust and rely on his young Nim. Myung-hwan nodded his head.
Very good.
Yes? Yes?
You pass.
What did he pass just now? Jino belatedly raised his bowed head.
I shall entrust the Eugen Guild to you.
Pardon me?
Do your best to develop the Eugen Guild. Make those trustworthy and reliable hunters your people. In the future, they will no doubt become even more valuable assets than any form of wealth.
Myung-hwan spoke with abundant certainty in his voice, and just as his certainty was great, so was Jino's delight. Would this be the first time since his birth that Jino was acknowledged by his father? That's actually a very sad thing to think about. Not since his birth? Would his father have been happy to acknowledge him? Okay, that's sad that you have that thought process. Would this be the first time since his birth that Jino was acknowledged by his father? Thank you very much, father. With an ample smile blooming on his face, Jino bent his back forward 90 degrees. I'm going to keep thinking that someone is bending their back 90 degrees backwards every single time I see this sentence. Myung-hwan looked on at that sight with a content expression. Unfortunately, what Jino said next went completely against Myung-hwan's expectations. However, father, I don't think I can accept your offer. Myung-hwan's brows quivered slightly. The financial wherewithal of the Eugen construction was more than enough to put the soon-to-be-established Eugen Guild on the fast track. Already, talks with a few rank S hunters had advanced into a more concrete stage as well. The Eugen Guild becoming South Korea's biggest guild was already a foregone conclusion. Jino must have known this, too.
That's why my son wanted to become the master, wasn't it?
However, now that he was about to hand the guild over, why was his boy declining it? Did he get scared in the meantime? Myung-hwan did his best to suppress his disappointment and rage towards Jino and managed to say something.
What is your reason?
Jino raised his head at that prompt, and while still carrying a happy-looking face, he spoke without holding anything back. I've decided to work for Young Nim's Guild. And that is the end of Chapter 94. Onwards to Chapter 95. I'll eat some lunch after we're done with that, and then we'll get back to the rest of the chapters for the remainder of this read-through. Chapter 95! Finding himself surrounded by a wall of reporters, Jin became quite flustered.
Why aren't these people taking pictures of Lee Min-sung like they were supposed to instead of blocking my way?
Wondering if Min-sung was standing behind him, he took a quick glance, but he could only see Baek Yoon-ho and Choi Jong-in there. It was then his thigh began vibrating. It was his mobile phone inside the pocket.
Why would Jenna call me at this time of the day?
As soon as he tapped on the answer icon, his little sister's urgent voice exploded out from the speaker. But that was obvious. Just how many TV cameras were present here? You would still get roughly the same picture regardless of which TV station you tuned into. He got momentarily tense after his sister, who was supposed to still be in school, suddenly called him up but was able to breathe a sigh in relief.
So nothing in particular happened, right?
From her voice, it was quite obvious that the girl was feeling really shocked at the moment. Unfortunately, his current circumstances meant that he couldn't explain everything to her in detail. And this was Jin saying, so nothing in particular happened, right? From her voice, it was quite obvious that the girl was feeling really shocked at the moment. Unfortunately, her current circumstances meant that he couldn't explain everything to her in detail. Right now, I'm a bit occupied, so... Okay, I'll tell you everything once you get back home. Despite his sister's anxious voice calling out to him, Jin ended the call. Beep. At the same time, he got to figure out how the current situation came to be. There was a message, huh? The Hunters Association used a dedicated app to deliver important information in real time. Most of the time, the app alerted the users to the location of rank A or higher dungeons, or where dungeon breaks were about to occur, but it was a different story today. After confirming the contents of the message, Jin quickly accessed the association's website, and sure enough, the ink on his Rank S Hunter license wasn't even dry yet, but the list of the highest-ranking hunters in South Korea had been updated already. Sung Jin-woo, Rank S, Mage type. It was as it was written on his license. They are unnecessarily fast on things like this. Shoving the phone back in his pocket, Jin redirected his gaze back to the front. Mr. Sung Jin-woo, are you really the rank E hunter once affiliated with the association? You are now a very rare reawakened. How you feeling right now? Reporters writhed and struggled desperately in order to capture a bit more of Jin's face or his voice within their cameras. However, Jin found their explosive attention towards him simply annoying. I gotta get out of this place first. Asking them politely to make way wasn't going to work. Jin's brows quivered. Should he just summon his shadow soldiers to carve out a path and leave? Over here, Mr. Sung Jin-woo, please look over this way. Mr. Sung Jin-woo, the whole country is watching, so how about a smile for the viewers? While the camera lenses and mics were gradually inching closer, Jin spent the next 2 seconds earnestly pondering whether he should summon shadow soldiers like Tank or Fang or not, or Tusk. Meanwhile, behind Jin, Choi looked at Jin's back as the youth stood there, unable to go anywhere thanks to the cordon of reporters blocking his way. He approached Yoon-ho and spoke. Looks like our new recruit hunter name is feeling a bit troubled about the excessive attention, no?
And just who gave you the permission to call Sung Jin-woo Hunter Neem your new recruit now?
Can't I even make a joke? It's just a joke. Two men began their war of nerves once again. In the end, though, Choi took a step back first. He sighed before speaking up again. In any case, it'd be the same thing as giving other guilds a chance if we waste any more time here. Yoon-ho agreed with that assessment. Not just the Reapers Guild, Master Lim Tae-gyu, who just so coincidentally was present here today because of Lee Min-sung, but the other remaining super large guilds would be desperately trying to get in touch with Hunter Sung Jin-woo right about now. Yoon-ho scanned the crowd of reporters.
So, Chairman Choi, what you're suggesting is...
Before flies come rushing in from the smell, let us escort Sung Jin-woo Hunter Neem to his residence, while we have a chat with him regarding this and that. Meaning, the two of them should pool their resources first and prevent more potential rivals from appearing. Didn't matter what kind of abilities Jin possessed, he'd still need a guild's aid if he were to attack higher-ranking dungeons. So, if they play their cards right, then either the White Tiger or the Hunters Guild could find themselves with another rank S in the roster. Choi was utterly confident of the guild he led, the Hunters, and...
All right.
Bake, too, didn't feel that this was a bad suggestion either. The White Tiger might not have been as big as the Hunters, but it still was a guild with great future prospects.
Besides, our section chief An and Deputy Hyun are familiar with Mr. Sung Jin-woo from a while ago.
At a bare minimum, he knew for sure that they had a closer relationship than the Hunters Guild. And so, the interests of these two men lined up rather nicely. They exchanged a few suspicious glances at each other before turning around to approach Jin. The first one to engage the young man in conversation was Yunho.
Hunter name.
Jin looked behind him.
Yes?
Choi inwardly clicked his tongue after losing the initiative, but since they made a tacit agreement to cooperate, he didn't interfere. Yunho formed the brightest smile he could manage and continued on.
Are you feeling lost with all these reporters around? We can safely escort you back to your house. So how about going with us? You're pretty good at dealing with these sort of situations, you see.
Although a bit of exaggeration was mixed in there, what he said wasn't an empty promise at all. This event was something any Rank S hunter would experience at least once. Not only that, these two men also learned how to deal with people's attention while managing their respective large guilds, too. Choi provided support fire from the side. Let's head out together. Also, there's something we'd like to discuss with you as well. Too bad for them. Jin simply formed a polite enough smile to reject them.
I'll be all right.
He then pulled the hood attached to his top and hid his face.
I actually do have a place I need to stop by first.
Welcome back, Kitty. We are currently on chapter 95. I'll take a break to eat some leftovers that we have, because we still got leftovers from Soul Food yesterday. After I'm done with 95, I'll take a lunch break, eat that, and then we'll continue on with the remaining chapters of this reading, which, depending on my decision, may be my last reading of solo leveling on the channel, simply because there are a lot of variables where this could come back to haunt me in a major way, but we'll discuss it later.
I actually do have a place I need to stop by first.
Excuse me? But how will you get out of here, what with all these report... Choi couldn't get to continue with the rest of his sentence. Whoosh! Because Jin turned to face the reporters and then jumped tens of meters in the air before landing on the other side of the crowd. That's why. Huh? Even before the flustered reporters could respond, Jin blended into the crowd and disappeared from the view. Choi was left speechless. Now that was a movement he couldn't even react to in time, even though he was a rank S. It was quite obvious that the reporters, who were all regular people, wouldn't be able to follow that with their naked eyes. Choi let out a wry chuckle. As soon as registering as a rank S, he's already playing the part of Superman. How was he supposed to be a mage type with that sort of physical ability? As a fellow mage type, it sure riled him up a bit. But in that case, how would a rank S melee type hunter think of that? Just now Choi turned towards Yunho. Yeah, nothing like good old soul food. Yeah, we got collard greens, we got string beans, we got yams, we got potato salad, we got burnt mac and cheese. Not perfectly yellow mac and cheese, even with a hint of high yellow, it is burnt across the top, and we got Hawaiian rolls to go with it. And we got honey barbecue wings to go with it as well. Yes, sir! Choi, just now Choi turned towards Yunho in order to ask a question, but he flinched and reflexively took a step back.
Chairman Bake, your eyes.
He was so surprised that he even forgot to add the honorific title.
My apologies.
Yunho hurriedly covered his eyes with his hand and turned around. When he opened his eyes again after a short while later, they had reverted back from the monster-like irises to those of a normal human being. However, just because his eyes changed back to normal, that didn't mean his shock had worn off.
How can this be?
Yunho trembled on the spot. Just now, when Jin gathered strength on his legs to prepare for that jump, he very briefly released his magic energy he had been concealing until then. No matter how skillful a hunter was, it was nearly impossible to detect anything in such a short a period of time. However, that incredible magic energy still caused Yunho to instinctively activate one of his abilities, the Eyes of the Beast, and those eyes successfully detected Jin's hidden power.
He's strong.
Yunho already knew how strong the youth was. However,
no, that's not important.
Back when they had gotten into a bit of confrontation in front of the Red Gate, oh yes, yes, you are well versed in the art of making of burnt mac and cheese as well. Yes, you are very well versed in it. Back when they had gotten into a bit of a confrontation in front of the Red Gate, Yun-Ho also activated the Eyes of the Beast inadvertently. Jin's strength was clearly imprinted in Yun-Ho's mind back then. Back then, the youth was very strong. Even if it was Yun-Ho himself, he would not have been able to win without sacrificing an arm. However, that was all. If he was willing to sacrifice that much, then he'd be able to win at any time. But now, what was the meaning of this difference in strength? He detected magic energy incomparably greater than before. That youth was so much stronger now. So much stronger than back then. His reawakening process should have been over a long time ago, so how could this be? In that instant, an implausible theory popped up in Yun-Ho's mind, in Yun-Ho's head.
Could he be able to grow stronger?
Possibly not through reawakening process, but through growing stronger that he... Just as his thoughts arrived at this point, "Excuse me, Chairman Bake, are you all right? Your complexion is..." Choi worriedly asked him. Yun-Ho rubbed his face and shook his head hard.
I was suddenly feeling a bit dizzy just now. I'm okay.
You're still young. You should be more careful. While conversing with Choi, Yun-Ho continued to stare in the direction that Jin had disappeared to.
He's already transcended the regular rank S. But if he could continue increasing his strength, then...
Shudder. Yun-Ho's entire body shuddered from goosebumps.
Taxi!
Oh wait. Taxi. Taxi. After successfully shaking off the reporters, Jin caught a taxi on a deserted road. That one slipped out. Please forgive me. After successfully shaking off the reporters, Jin caught a taxi on a deserted road. He now possessed the Rank S license that he so wanted. Him leveling up and clearing dungeons were all good and nice, but right now, the most important thing was curing his mother. The Divine Water of Life. He didn't know if this item called Divine Water of Life could really heal his mother. However, if there is a 1 in 1,000, no, even if it's 1 in 10,000 chance, then He wanted to clear the demon's castle as quickly as humanly possible and collect all the ingredients so he could craft this Divine Water of Life. And in order to do that, he needed to find an artifact that could protect him from the overwhelming heat of the demon's castle. Jin settled down in the backseat of the taxi and told the driver his destination.
To the Korean Hunter auction, please.
Thank you, Kitty. The taxi driver took a glance through the rearview mirror and grinned brightly.
Well, you must be going there to sell something good, am I right? I hear that the minimum trading price starts at around tens of millions of won.
Instead of a reply, Jin simply formed a thin smile. The driver swallowed his saliva. 3! By saying that he wanted to go to the hunter auction to sell something, that youth was declaring that he was a hunter, and the driver needed to be extra careful when dealing with hunters. There were more than a few among the hunters possessing somewhat of particular personalities that were just as strange as their powers. If the driver made a mistake and got on the bad side of this youth, a big incident might break out.
Well, this young man doesn't look like one of those people, but still it's better to be on the cautious side, no?
The driver remained mindful of Jin's moods and kept his mouth shut, and thanks to that, the interior of the taxi was left largely quiet during the drive. Jin used this part of the trip to search the internet. Various articles, social media sites, as well as portal communities, etc., were all filled with the discussion regarding the new Rank S Hunter. Lee Min-sung used to be the #1 searched for topic until this morning, yet his name could no longer be seen in the top 10 now. Jin clicked his tongue.
I didn't expect it to be this crazy, though.
Sure, he did expect some amount of attention, but he definitely didn't believe that it becomes such a hot trending topic at all. Then again, there were only 10 in Korea. If one were to exclude 2 who died or had emigrated to elsewhere, then there were only 8 rank S hunters in the country. So how could the response of its citizens not be feverish?
Wait, why was it quiet back when Cha Hae-in became a rank S?
Because the 9th rank S Cha Hae-in was almost never exposed to the media, Jin thought his case would be similar to that. But when he searched this and that, he eventually discovered that once Cha Hae-in had become a rank S, she requested the association to keep most of her details confidential.
Just by requesting the association, both the media and guilds can't even rely on laws to approach you.
If there was such a convenient method available, why didn't the association president tell him about this? Jin recalled the question he got just as he was about to enter the examination area. Back then, the association president asked him this.
Have you thought of a guild to join?
No, not yet.
Did he ask because of that? If he were to request confidentiality, then guilds wouldn't have been able to approach him, so it was likely the association president deliberately hadn't said anything.
Well, that's that, I guess.
Jin requested confidentiality from the association while online and rang up the Korean Hunter auction. Click.
I'd like to get an artifact appraised. I'm on my way there, but will it be okay? It's a bead containing an amplification effect on one's magic. Indeed I have, but they weren't really all that trustworthy, so I wanted to get the hunter's auction's opinion.
The conversation was halted for a moment as if the other party was jotting something down, but it soon resumed.
It was 100%. It was a 100% amplification effect.
The voice over the phone came out after a short pause.
Yes, I am.
The corners of Jin's lips arched up.
I knew this would happen.
Would the hunter auction even talk to him? Perfect timing. Family was talking to me about food.
I knew this would happen.
Would the hunter auction even talk to him if he wanted to sell this nonsensical artifact when he was still a rank E hunter? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he got reevaluated precisely for this moment. Jin confidently declared,
It's rank S. Name Song Jin-woo.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of chapter 95. I will currently go on my lunch break, take a break for myself, eat my food, and once all is said and done, we will continue with the remaining chapters for this reading, and then I'll be done for the day. And then after I'm done resting for a little bit, we'll have that Xbox discussion stream, because there is a lot to talk about. But for now, I'll go ahead and type this up in chat that I'm about to go on lunch break. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Thank you for your patience, and I really do hope you've been enjoying yourself thus far. Back in a bit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, break officially over. Don't worry, I'll cut this out in post, as I tend to do. Let's continue with the remaining chapters of this reading for today. Chapter 96! Jin soon arrived at the hunter auction. The main building was like... Wait, hold on. Yeah, I had to make sure the playback volume was down low, just to make sure the volume was still good. Jin soon arrived at the hunter auction. The main building was not tall, but was rather wide, leading to an initial impression that instead of an office building, it was more like a museum or an art gallery. The massive car park seemed to scream out loud, "We'll accommodate everyone, regardless of whether the participants are in the hundreds or in the thousands." The impressive building was standing in the middle of that parking lot. The impressive building was standing in the middle of that parking lot. One could easily guess just how much money the hunter auction was making through commissions from the artifact trade. Jin exited from the taxi and made his way towards the building, but even before he could take a couple of steps, a formally dressed man suddenly ran outside first. You must be Sung Jinu Hunterneem. Yes, I am. The man checked Jin's face and formed a surprised expression, but he quickly remembered his role and greeted the youth with a welcoming tone of voice. My name is Kim Jong-ki from the Hunter Auction Appraisal Department. We talked on the phone. Please follow me. Jin lightly nodded his head. While leading Jin towards the appraisal room, Jong-ki's mind was racing. The new rank S that disappeared from the reporters only a short while ago is standing right behind me. When he first received the call, he thought it had been some kind of a prank. First of all, the supposed effect of the artifact sounded nonsensical, and more importantly, it was because the guy on the phone said that he was the rank S hunter announced earlier in the day. I almost ended up insulting a rank S hunter, didn't I? Just how frightened was he after the Hunters Association confirmed that the phone number did indeed belong to Hunter Sung Jinu? He should thank the lucky stars that he followed the book and didn't rudely dismiss the call outright.
Now officially registered in his new rank, Hunter Sung Jinu has jumped up over 5 levels in rank from E to S through his reawakening process, and it's revealed that he possesses mage-type abilities.
Even now, this young man's face could be seen plastered on the TV screens mounted on various parts of the auction house. Perhaps he himself found it a bit too much, since the youth pulled his hood low to hide his face. They weren't even talking about Jong-ki, but for some reason he felt a bit flattered as the news broadcast continued to mention Jin's name. Should I ask him if we can take a selfie together? He shook his head, though. If he wasn't currently at work, he'd have requested for a selfie as well as some autographs. However, he couldn't do something that rude to a client coming in for an important trade. He had to persevere and hold tight for the time being. Was the corridor from the entrance to here this short? They arrived at the appraisal room while several thoughts fleeted in and out of his head. Jong-ki spoke with a wistful expression. It's this way. The head of the appraisal department, as well as the company's best appraiser, were anxiously waiting inside this wide room. They even gave up on lunch just to be here. Seeing Jin's face, the department head's eyes opened wider.
It really is the same guy from the news.
Meanwhile, the appraiser nervously swallowed his dry saliva. That is now 4 counts.
In that case, the magic amplification tool is really...
No, nothing was certain yet. Just because the guy was real, that didn't mean the stuff was real too. The appraiser repeated this in his head as if to calm himself down. Even the best magic amplification artifact created with top materials from the world's greatest artifact maker pouring out his soul would not exceed 50% in effect. And then, gathering of the right materials itself would not be easy, not to mention that the manpower necessary and time required to make one should be ridiculous as well. One might consider himself lucky if he got to see one of these artifacts popping up in the market once every few years. There were willing mage-type hunters from around the world lining up in a long queue to buy such items, but there was literally nothing to sell to them. Well, there was no need to go as far as the world here. Even locally, the mage-type hunter, and often referred to as the ultimate weapon Shui Zhongyin, was seriously determined to purchase an amplification artifact with 50% or more effect. But then, a hunter who might be a rank S but not widely known came to visit the auction while carrying an artifact with 100% amplification effect?
That must be nonsense.
The story was so inconceivable that if only the guy wasn't the top-ranked hunter, they would have kicked him in the behind and thrown him out of the premises immediately. Well, already. However, they couldn't refuse admittance to a rank S hunter. Even if today's matter ended as a whole heap of nothing, this man would no doubt become an important client in the future.
Well, there's nothing to lose here.
The appraiser spoke to Jin, his face a mixture of a slight expectation and several times greater misgiving.
May I take a look at that artifact?
Both Zhongqi and the department head also stared at Jin with tense expressions.
All right.
While pretending to take it out from his pocket, Jin summoned the bead of avarice from his inventory.
So, this is...
The appraiser adjusted his glasses and stared at the beautiful, round, blood-colored bead. It was an item possessing a certain magnetic charm that made the onlookers gasp out in astonishment involuntarily. The two men from the appraisal department expressed their admiration under their breaths. However, the appraiser was tilting his head while adjusting his glasses.
This doesn't...
While adjusting his glasses again.
This doesn't look like an artifact made from a magic crystal or a mana stone, am I correct?
Yes, you are correct. Yes, you're right.
The appraiser nodded his head.
As I thought.
He had been an appraiser for 7 years already. He was able to observe countless artifacts until now, but he hadn't seen a single crystal emitting a crimson hue like this one. Most regular crystals emitted a clean, bluish tinge, and the higher the grade, the darker they got. However, this one was a red color? The appraiser continued to tilt his head this way and that before receiving the bead. When he did...
What is this?
Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his spine. It was because of the unidentifiable power he sensed from the crimson bead.
Could it be?
He was frightened out of his wits as he stared at the magic bead. The appraiser was actually a rank B mage type awakened, and thus he could immediately sense what kind of an item he was holding in his hand. Cold sweat broke out all over him.
Oh my god!
Goosebumps formed on his skin because of the sheer power emanating from this magic bead, and he hurriedly raised his head to find Jin wordlessly staring back at him.
If the person who brought this here was a low-rank hunter, then I...
This was his first time feeling like this. He lost count how many priceless artifacts he had handled over the years. But this was the first and the only time he felt the strong desire to beat up the person bringing this item for appraisal and steal it. Unfortunately, his opponent was a rank S. Jin continued to silently stare. The appraiser managed to pull himself together and rein his desire in after receiving that stare.
I wanted to rob a rank S.
Never mind trying, he wouldn't even dare to imagine doing something like that to a hunter with such a huge gap in power from him. Just like how the appraiser did when he was looking at the bead, Jin was tilting his head at the appraiser now.
What's the matter with him?
Was he feeling unwell somehow? Nonetheless, the appraiser wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and spoke to the department head.
Excuse me, Director, please turn the camera on.
Yes, hold on. The meaning behind that request was that the item in the appraiser's hand was not a fake. The department head's heartbeat increased rapidly. The person to answer Jin's call first, Zhongqi, also displayed a similar expression. Filming will commence now. The department head shifted the camera lens over to the appraiser. The appraiser walked over to the dish-shaped magic energy measuring device. First, he put the bead down and got himself measured. Boop! Numerical values showed up. He got measured again, but this time with the magic bead in his hand. The measured magic energy leaking out of the appraiser instantly doubled in value. Boop! After confirming the results, Kim Jong-ki's complexion paled. How could this be? The department head also hurriedly approached closer and confirmed the results too. 100%? It's really a magic tool possessing 100% amplification effect! His heart began pounding harder. The average commission the hunter auction earned from assisting with the artifact trade was around 5%. If an item sold for around 100 billion won, then they would earn about 5 billion from the deal. However, even with his vast experience, he could not estimate just how much this crimson magic bead could be sold for. This is a huge jackpot! A jackpot! If there were no one looking, he'd have cried out, "Hooray!" and hugged the subordinate employee next to him. Just how much sales incentive would he receive if the deal goes through successfully? The overwhelming excitement left him utterly breathless. Jean-Key's reactions were not too different from his superior. He clenched his fists tightly with an ecstatic expression on his face. Yes! If he could get recognized for today's work, then it'd only be a matter of time before he got a promotion. I will move on to
demonstration next.
The appraiser spoke with great difficulty, his voice trembling non-stop. The two men from the appraisal department quickly distanced themselves. Jin also took a few steps back. The camera was filming everything quite well. If one were to appeal to the potential buyers, actual footage was far more effective than simple numerical values. The appraiser's eyes were directed towards the camera.
Let's get started.
The blizzard the size of a truck's wheel began raging on the appraiser's right hand. He continued on.
While maintaining this magic energy, I shall touch the magic bead.
The moment his left hand touched the bead of avarice, the blizzard dancing on his hand rocked the entire appraisal room.
Gah!
If the stunned appraiser hadn't canceled his magic quickly, the entire room might have frozen solid in an instant.
Turn the camera off, please.
Yes. The department head nodded and ran to the camera to turn it off. With that, the artifact appraisal process had been concluded. Jin was worried about after sensing the magic energy exploding out of the appraiser's hand, but in the end he got to breathe a sigh of relief. It wasn't just him, though, as everyone present in the room also spat out long sighs to calm their trembling hearts. Almost instantly, silence descended in the room. Jin quietly asked, "How much do you think it'll go for?" Could he be able to buy the artifact he wanted after selling this guy off? Well, besides that, he was also genuinely curious about how much a magic tool capable of amplifying one's magic by 100% would go for. Not goat for. The appraiser stared at the bead of avarice with a look of incredulity. With a look of incredulity. I gotta sound that out. The appraiser stared at the bead of avarice with a look of incredulity.
How can I even think about putting a price tag on this?
His gaze shifted over to Jin. He swallowed down his dry saliva. 5! Just where did this man acquire an artifact like this? This wasn't a problem the appraiser should worry about. He knew that, but still he couldn't hold back and asked anyway.
Where did you find this?
Jin looked at Jean-Ki, not the appraiser, and asked instead, "Is that question also necessary for a smooth transaction?" Jean-Ki avoided meeting his gaze as if he was feeling sheepish and scratched the back of his neck. The appraiser quickly shook his head.
No, not at all. It's just that I was just too surprised, that's all. However, when the existence of this magic tool is revealed to the public, everyone will no doubt grow curious about its origins.
Indeed, the other two men present seemed to be dying of curiosity as well. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. There was no reason not to answer if they asked him. It wasn't as if he acquired this bead through less than honest means, and also, even if others know, none of them would be able to find another one for themselves anyway. Jin's lips parted. 3 other people in the room held their breaths and focused on Jin's answer, wondering just what might come out of his mouth. Jin simply grinned and replied, "I picked it up in a dungeon." Yoon-ho returned to his private office.
I wish to be left alone for a while, so don't let anyone in.
Maybe he found ordering his secretary wasn't enough. He even locked the door, too. Only after that he switched on his computer. And then, using the authority afforded to a rank S hunter, as well as a master of a guild, he began perusing every information he could get his hands on.
Can it really happen?
Yun-Ho couldn't stop thinking about Jin, a hunter that could grow stronger. But, if not that, then how could anyone explain that man's strength that had increased to an unrecognizable degree in only a few days? Yun-Ho's fingers moved quite quickly. He logged into the special hunter website that only the top-ranked hunters around the world could access, and searched for any information related to this matter. Unfortunately, it was a waste of time.
There's nothing.
There was not one hunter who could improve their stats all by themselves. No, they could only grow stronger through pure luck, also known as awakening or reawakening process. So, should he call that man not as a hunter but someone chosen by the gods? Countless windows repeatedly popped up, only to disappear, and countless texts filled the screen without a moment's rest. 3 hours passed by like that. Getting fatigued from the long hours spent on searching, Yun-Ho leaned against the back of his chair.
Maybe I overreacted.
That could have been a possibility, because he was too shocked by the incredible strength Jin displayed. He could have thought up a crazy theory as a way to explain that. What was he doing when things remained so hectic? Rather than wasting time like this, he should be sending another offer to Jin instead. Who knows, that quick-witted Chairman Choi could already be visiting Jin with a contract in his hand by now. Yun-Ho chuckled dryly and began closing all the windows one by one. But, when only a single window was left open...
Wait a minute.
Just for fun, he typed Hunter Level Up Ability in the search engine. Of course, there was no result to speak of. Yun-Ho wasn't expecting anything tangible to begin with, when he typed that anyway. It was just that he was unconsciously repeating the actions he performed when searching for something online.
Now that I think about it, I haven't had lunch today.
He slowly rubbed his tummy as he belatedly sensed his hunger. Yun-Ho was about to log off the search engine altogether, but then his eyes gleamed brightly. He spotted a certain link with some words below it, found on the 5th page of the search results. If the linked address wasn't the forum only hunters could sign up with, he'd have ignored those words and move on. Yun-Ho quickly moved the mouse. Title: Something weird has happened to me. Description: I can suddenly see my stats in numbers like in a video game, and I can even increase their values too. Is there anyone who has experienced something similar to me? An anonymous had opened a thread with those words. However, how should Yun-Ho describe this? When he read that, he could feel his breaths quickening, as well as his heartbeat pounding faster and faster.
Surely, others will think I've lost my mind.
Still, there was nothing to lose by confirming it. Yun-Ho picked his phone up. Soon, the section chief of the 2nd Division, Song-min, answered the call.
I'd like you to find something out for me, please.
Yun-Ho wanted to find out what Jin was doing on the day this anonymous wrote those words. With a short but simple answer, the call ended. Section Chief On was a talented employee. If Yun-Ho waited for a little while, then that man would find what he needed through any means necessary. However, the result arrived sooner than he expected.
Already?
Yun-Ho quickly picked up the ringing phone.
Oh, really?
Yun-Ho smiled brightly. Now that he thought about it, there was once a time when the entirety of the 2nd Division was focused on gathering intel on Sung Jin-woo after Chief On ordered them. Thanks to that, he didn't have to wait for long.
Yes, I remember. Oh, is that so?
Yun-Ho formed a disappointed expression. An unconscious man wouldn't be able to upload anything on the internet, after all.
Increasing your stat values. There's no way such a thing is even possible.
It all really was an unfunny waste of time in the end. He was getting somewhat tired now. He decided that he'd go home a bit early today and sleep. But then, from the phone speaker, An Sungmin's mystified voice came out. And that is the end of chapter 96. Onwards to chapter 97, everybody. We're almost done. Chapter 97. As soon as he heard that, Yoon-ho quickly fixed his previously slouched sitting position.
He woke up on that day?
Sungmin amended his answer almost right away, but Yoon-ho thought that the time difference of one day wasn't important here. No, the truly important bit was the fact that the possibility of Sung Jin-woo posting those words had not dissipated at all.
I see. That should be enough. Thank you for your help.
Yoon-ho ended the call there, and after finding the folder containing a certain file on his computer, he opened it. It was the report compiled on Sung Jin-woo by the 2nd Division. Click, click. Yoon-ho paid greater attention to Jin's recent activities as he browsed through the information. He hadn't displayed anything particularly interesting before that incident. He lived the typical life of a ranky hunter, got injured often, didn't make a lot of money, etc. However,
after the dual dungeon incident,
Yoon-ho was present that day as well. The association urgently sought after the aid of the nearest large guild, which was the White Tiger, and Yoon-ho gladly led the elite assault team and went over there. That's when he saw the sight of an unconscious young man being taken to the hospital in an ambulance.
Well, I didn't know that was Sung Jin-woo back then.
Just what went down inside that dungeon. In any case, Jin had changed completely from that point onwards. He used to quietly help out with the work of association up until then, but not only he chose to join up with a freelancer raid team, he even cleared several rank C gates in a single day as well. Without a doubt, something in him changed inside that dual dungeon.
This is definitely not your typical reawakening.
Chief An theorized that Yujin Construction was testing out Hunter Sung Jin-woo's powers after he went through the reawakening process, but
no, it's not.
But that wouldn't be able to explain the continued and rather speedy increase in that man's powers, even though his reawakening process should have ended by now. So what if
there is a hunter who can continuously grow stronger?
Not only that, his rate of growth was so fast that when in a span of a few months his powers rose up from the rank E all the way up to rank S? Yoon-ho inadvertently let a gasp escape from his mouth. It was a goosebumps-inducing idea, indeed. Of course, there was no evidence that the anonymous poster and Hunter Sung Jin-woo were the same person. However, if Jin could increase his strength exactly like how it was written in that post, then just imagining how much further he could grow made Yoon-ho dizzy. And at the same time,
I was being foolish.
He finally understood why Jin was so disinterested in signing up with the guild.
Thinking about it from his perspective,
if he was given an ability where he could theoretically grow stronger infinitely, would he want to enter someone else's guild?
Yoon-ho shook his head. Nope, I'd rather make a guild of my own.
Who cared about the number 1 or 2 guilds in the country? After all, his own would soon become the best anyway.
Both Choi Jong-in and I have been wasting time chasing after a pipe dream, huh?
Thinking about Chairman Choi, who should be sweating profusely right about now while trying to woo Hunter Sung Jin-woo, a wry chuckle automatically broke out of his mouth.
However, if my theory is correct, then this matter isn't something to laugh about.
In the not-too-distant future, that man would surely become an existence that would get to control the community of hunters in South Korea. No, hunters of the entire world might focus all their attention on him at this rate. He needed to completely rethink the plan regarding Hunter Sung Jin-woo now. But before all that,
I need to meet him face to face and confirm it first.
Yoon-ho nodded his head. No matter how hard he thought about it, Meeting Hunter Sung Jinu was the #1 priority. Unfortunately,
How am I supposed to ask him for a meeting?
Yunho held his head tightly. Hold on, let me take a sip.
Ah, there we go. How am I supposed to ask him for a meeting?
Yunho held his head tightly. When he realized that he just made his mind up to meet a man who didn't even reply once to the countless requests for a sit-down until now, his head already began throbbing from a migraine. The appraiser spoke in a shocked tone of voice.
You picked it up in a dungeon?
Jin nodded his head. Technically speaking, he did pick it up after defeating Vulcan in the Demon's Castle dungeon. So he wasn't lying here, was he?
You can find something like this in a dungeon?
Well, you can find something like this in a dungeon?
Well, it's not something the current level of craftsmanship can create.
The appraiser who asked the question, as well as the 2 members of the appraisal department who heard the answer, all carried unconvinced expressions, but since the person himself said so, there was no other choice but to accept it. And truth be told, it wasn't really important where this crimson magic tool came from.
No.
The important thing would be what this Hunter Neem wants to do with it. The department head took a step forward. It has been confirmed to be a real deal. His gaze was fixed on the bead lying in Jin's palm. Will you commence with the auction with us? We will ensure that you get the maximum amount for this article. So what should Jin do now? Before he could decide on what to do with the bead of avarice, he asked for something else first. By any chance, can I purchase a flame resistance defensive, artifact here? Let me say that sentence again. By any chance, can I purchase a flame resistance defensive artifact here? The department head and Jiang Qi looked at each other, and then they looked back at Jin with somewhat awkward expressions. Jin was confused by that. Did I ask for something I shouldn't have? No, not at all. Or is it really difficult to find a flame resistance armor then? Actually, the department head smiled and spoke. It's the exact opposite. It's really easy to acquire one. But I couldn't find one online, though. Weapons and defensive equipment with negative attributes cost a lot of money, so they don't normally appear online all that often. Even still, if you are looking for it, you should be able to find one very quickly. Well, fire-type magic is the most common attack magic spells there are, after all. But of course, most of the mage-type hunters Jin met so far either wielded flames or rays of light. He heard that even the Renkes hunter Choi Zhongyin specialized in flame attribute magic too. Not only that, the shadow magic soldiers he controlled also used flames, and even fangs could breathe fire. In other words, fire-type attacks were a pretty common sight. What a relief to hear that it's easy to find one. He did kind of feel a bit pressured after hearing that it would cost a lot, but his mother's treatment depended on him getting one. As long as he could find one quickly enough, he was willing to pay regardless of what the asking price was. If the push came to shove, he could sell the bead of avarice too. Can you find one for me? Yes, of course. The department head was about to exit the appraisal room, but stopped and looked at Kim Jong-ki. Mr. Jong-ki, rather than having our guest wait here doing nothing at all, how about showing him around the items that will go up in auction soon? Ah, of course, I will. Jong-ki stepped forward. Please, come with me. So, 2 men headed off to the display hall exclusively reserved for the VIP clients that exhibited only those ultra-expensive artifacts about to be auctioned off, or still waiting for their willing buyers. Weapons, armors, rune stones, etc. were displayed inside clear glass cases. Jin stopped in front of a glass display case that contained a longsword. Zhong-ki approached him. Do you see anything you're interested in? No. No, it's not that, but Jin lightly knocked on the glass case. Can you really protect these artifacts with such a thin glass? I don't see any particular security system in here either. Zhong Qi formed a proud expression. They may look that way, but these glasses are reinforced with powerful magic energy by the very best craftsmen. Nothing would happen even if a melee-type rank A hunter hits them with everything he has. Even when a rank A hits it? Seeing that Jin seemed rather unconvinced, Zhong Qi smirked and carried on. If you don't believe me, how about hitting the glass once? If you manage to break it, then I might give you the artifact found inside, Hunter Neem. Was this reinforced glass really that strong? I can sense some magic energy in it, but... Now feeling genuinely curious, Jin began gathering strength in his right arm to test it. In an instant, his shoulder and forearm expanded, and the surrounding air sank under the heavy pressure. Hold on! Zhong Qi hurriedly blocked Jin's way. I was only just joking. I wasn't really asking you to hit it, you know. Oh, I see. If the case really breaks, then the elites of the Hunters Guild will rush over here. Our auction house and the Hunters have signed a security contract, you see? This man, telling jokes as if he's being earnest. Jin withdrew his strength. As soon as the heavy pressure emanating from him was lifted, Zhong Qi quickly breathed a sigh of relief. By the way, this guy, wasn't he supposed to be a mage-type hunter? He was supposed to be a mage-type hunter, yet why was his aura so outrageous? Zhong Qi wasn't joking when he told Jin to hit the glass. He was thinking that even though this youth was a rank S, he was a mage type, so his physical strength couldn't actually be that high. But then, when Jin began concentrating all the hair on Zhong Qi's body stood up, and instinctively he knew he had to stop the youth. What a relief it was that Jin backed off without raising a fuss. Well, young Nim's hand might get hurt if something went wrong, so this is fine. Zhong Qi consoled himself like that and guided Jin to other artifacts on display. After taking a look around once, Jin asked, Isn't there anything I can actually touch? Daggers, if possible? Since he wasn't really the type who depended on weapons, he hadn't paid much attention to the matter until now. But after taking a look at the various equipment on display, he suddenly became curious. Zhong Qi's expression brightened. The reason for showing off these artifacts to hunters was exactly for moments like this. Hunters may be sellers, but they were also valuable clients as well. Of course we have them. After replying, Zhong Qi used the mic attached to the collar of his suit just below his neck to summon the staff member in charge of the weapons. Fearing that Jin might change his mind, the staff member quickly arrived. And this gentleman is? The staff signaled with his eyes, and Zhong Qi nodded his head. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm in charge of the weapons section. Please come with me. The staff member guided Jin, and they exited from the VIP display hall. After seeing those two off, Zhong Qi spat out another sigh. This Sung Jinu hunter name seems to possess a talent for surprising people, doesn't he? After regaining some of his calm, Zhong Qi disinterestedly took a look around him. Before he walked over to the glass case with the longsword Jin seemed to be interested in earlier. He checked the glass case to see if there was a fingerprint or something, since Jin had been standing pretty close to it, but then he tilted his head slightly. Huh? Something was on the upper side of the case. What the heck? He spotted a crack in the corner of the glass case that was so small it was easy to miss with naked eyes. Since when did this happen? He pulled out a handkerchief and rubbed it, but sure enough, it didn't get wiped away. It wasn't some dirt, but an actual crack. Well, I'll be. Zhong Qi frowned deeply. How disappointed Hunter Sung Jinu would have been, someone who could be one of their most important clients, if he saw that. It was a small relief that the crack was near the corner of the case in a hard-to-spot location. Zhongqi tubbed audibly and summoned the maintenance team before exiting from the VIP display hall, like Jin had done. Jin picked up the dagger that the staff member in charge gave to him. If you were being honest, it was rather lousy in quality.
It's far worse than the Night Killer, which is ranked at Rarity B.
The attack power was not even half of the Night Killer, too. With a disappointed expression on his face, Jin returned the dagger.
How much is this guy?
It's 30 million won. Jin's eyes widened. How much did he say for this measly little dagger?
How much?
30 million won, Hunter name.
Hold on.
Jin turned around, and while pretending to rummage around, he summoned the Night Killer and showed it to the staff member.
Okay, how much would this guy go for then?
It was now the turn of the staff to widen his eyes. Is this your curtain weapon? Wowzers, I can definitely sense the touch of a great artisan from this dagger.
No, well, I bought it off the store, though.
The staff member hesitated slightly before raising his voice with a grin. It won't be accurate since I'm not a dedicated appraiser, but at the bare minimum, I think it should cost well over 100 million won. Jin's expression hardened.
But, I paid 3 million gold for it in the store.
Or was it more like 2.8 million? Seeing Jin's expression, the staff member embarrassedly scratched the back of his head. Was I wrong? Since I'm a specialist when it comes to weapons, I thought I could give it a shot, even though it's not really my place.
No, it's nothing like that.
Indeed, Jin was simply shocked by the sky-high price tag, that was all. But, well, the first real weapon he held, Kim Son-sik's steel sword and its attack damage of 10 was supposedly over 3 million won in price, while Yu Jino's equipment, which the kid didn't really get to use all that much, also commanded price tags of over 100 million each. So he shouldn't have been surprised by the fact that items with high stats sold in the system store could potentially fetch high asking price in real life too.
It's just that I didn't pay attention to that side of things until now.
Because he wasn't too interested in making a quick buck.
Wait a minute.
Currently, he had so much gold stored in his inventory that it was practically bursting at the seams. However, if he could buy items from the store with that accumulated gold and then sell them off at a really high price... Jin's head spun pretty quickly then.
Doesn't this mean I won't have to sell the Beat of Avarice?
Just as his thoughts arrived at this point... Were his emotions to blame? He thought he could hear the loud cheers of the magic soldiers hidden inside his shadow. And that is the end of Chapter 97. Onwards to Chapter 98. Chapter 98!
Holy cow! Oppa, those reporters are still outside the building.
Jenna spoke while looking out of the window. It was already late in the evening. Reporters who hadn't given up yet were still gathered around in front of the apartment's entrance like a storm cloud. Look! Up there! After discovering the silhouette of a person by the window, they hurriedly operated their cameras, thinking it was Jin. Seeing all those camera flashes suddenly exploding from here and there, Jenna jumped up in fright and quickly shuttered the curtains. She turned around and sighed softly like a timid little animal.
Phew.
Having returned from the hunter auction, Jin was thinking of taking a bit of a well-deserved rest, but he was carrying a rather stiff expression at the moment.
Should I go downstairs and say something?
It was fine for these folks to disrupt his rest. However, he was more worried about them disrupting his sister's studies. Jenna was a high school senior, about to take the most important test of her life. Wasn't this the time when some overly sensitive kids would throw a tantrum just because of the faint footsteps outside their doors disrupting their studies?
Well, Jenna isn't the type to raise a fuss over stuff like this, but
still, could she even be able to concentrate with all these distracting noises coming from the outside? Just as Jin was getting prepared to step forward...
No, don't do it!
Jenna quickly waved her hands about.
Oppa, you're already being slagged off in the internet, you know? So can you imagine what they'll say if you chase away the reporters?
Slagged off? Since when did I do something worthy of that treatment?
As Jin tilted his head this way and that, Jinna accessed one of the news articles online with her phone and pushed it forward. So he took it from her. On the screen, he could see the photo of him standing in front of the association's entrance, relaxedly answering his phone while being surrounded by a sea of reporters. Maybe because a professional snapped that shot, even a plain guy like him came out looking pretty good, so he was happy about that. However, when he took a look a bit lower down,
his attitude sucks.
He already doesn't care about the reporters.
He's way too cool for himself. Countless comments with similar nature were posted below the article, and the highest voted comment was,
Mom, I want to become a rank S.
Because the photo and the comment went so well with each other, Jin ended up breaking out in a grin. Jinna, in turn, became flabbergasted from his reaction.
How can you smile like that?
But it is funny.
When Jin showed her the top upvoted comment, Jinna too nearly broke out in laughter, but somehow managed to suppress it. And perhaps as a rebound.
No, wait a minute. That's not important, is it?
With a slightly flushed face, Jinna raised her voice.
Why did you have to answer your phone there? I mean, there were so many reporters present, you know? Thanks to you, everyone now knows my name.
Jin replied confidently as if he couldn't be fazed by anything.
Do I really need to observe reporters and their moods when answering my little sister's call?
Jinna became speechless. No matter how hard she thought about it, he wasn't wrong, so she couldn't readily come up with a suitable rebuttal.
I simply can't win against him in an argument.
Jin handed the phone... Jin handed the phone back to her.
Here.
Jinna took the phone back with a slightly testy face and opened her mouth.
In any case, I'll be fine, so Oppa, don't mind the reporters, okay?
Okay, got it.
Jin nodded his head. If the current situation persisted, then he might have to do something. But then again, the association did call him earlier to say that these reporters should all receive orders to stay far away from him in a day or two.
Well, I can endure that.
And there was also Jinna not wanting to inflate the situation any further, too.
By the way, just what on earth happened here?
Jinna looked at her brother with a pair of mystified eyes.
My own Oppa has became a rank S hunter, and reporters are camping outside our house, too.
Some said that it'd be difficult to run into a rank S hunter every once in your entire life, yet there was one standing in front of her. Not only that, he was her older brother, no less. Pretty much anyone would react the same way. If they were in her shoes. Jinna sounded as if she couldn't quite believe it. Too bad she had no choice but to adjust to the new reality sooner rather than later.
Just like
how I had to.
Jin smirked softly. And in order to soothe his sister in her still stunned heart, he lightly pinched Jinna's cheeks. Of course, she reacted in the same manner as in the past by kicking him, but
Ow!
She instead grabbed her foot and jumped up and down in pain. Jinna glared at him from the corners of her eyes as if this was just too much, while Jin could only shrug his shoulders. It seemed that she'd need quite a lot of time to get used to the fact that her Oppa was now a rank S awakened.
Oppa, I guess you'll become a lot busier now, right?
Jinna cautiously asked him. Jin nodded his head. There were lots of things he wanted to do, and plenty of work to get through, too. But for now, clearing the demon's castle took priority. He even resorted to buying a flame-resistant defensive artifact for the sole purpose of conquering the upper floors, after all. His own funds came up ridiculously short, so his heart nearly fell to the pit of his stomach, but thankfully, he was able to use one of the store's rarity A items as collateral and got a loan from the hunter auction.
I'm in debt as soon as becoming a rank S.
For some reason, a wry chuckle escaped from his lips. Well, as long as the items from the store could be sold off at high prices at auctions, that debt would be wiped clean in an instant, though.
In that case, it'd get harder to see you, right?
In that case, it'd get harder to see you, right?
Hearing that he might get a lot busier in the future, Jenna formed a slightly rueful expression. Indeed, being alone would be a lonesome task. Without saying anything, Jin placed his hand on Jenna's head. A few days from now. Once he cleared the Demon's Castle dungeon, there would never be another day when his sister would have to house sit all alone.
I'll make sure that happens for real.
It was then Jin's eyes narrowed to a slit. His gaze shifted towards the front door.
Someone's coming this way.
Jenna also noticed her brother's tense aura. She asked, sounding a little anxious.
Oppa?
Stay in your room for a bit, okay?
What's the matter?
A presence climbing out of the elevator was walking straight to her, straight to here now.
It's a hunter?
The suspicious presence emitted a thin and weak magic energy. Jin couldn't sense any hostile intentions from this presence, but still he didn't feel like humoring an uninvited guest. Did a guild send someone over? Or was it a foolhardy reporter placing too much faith in his own awakened powers? Didn't matter which was which. Jin wasn't a gracious enough person to accept with a smile an uninvited guest trying to invade the privacy of his home, when the hour was already well past 10 in the evening. Jin stood before the door.
With what kind of power?
He didn't need to summon his weapons. Jin lightly loosened his muscles. He tilted his head left and right, and his neck issued cracking noise. And as he expected,
Thud.
Someone knocked on the door, causing Jinna to run into her room in a bit of surprise. Jin quietly opened the door. Clang! And from the slowly widening gap of the door, a familiar face of a man could be seen. The man spoke. Young Nim! He was even sniffling, too. Yu Jin-O and his reddened nose were standing in front of the door, sniffling like a little kid. Jin was so dumbstruck that he stood there in a total daze, prompting Jin-O to tearfully speak up. Young Nim, I got kicked out of the house. Dad kicked me out. Now that Jin took another look, there was a backpack as big as Jin-O slung on his back. He was even carrying quite a lot of luggage in both of his hands.
Wait, didn't you live alone already?
Well, the villa I was living in was under Father's name, and he took it away. He even blocked all my bank accounts. A father blocking his son's bank accounts. All of them. What a movie-like situation that was. Well, this being the top businessman in South Korea. What a movie-like situation that was. But, well, this being the top businessman in South Korea, Chairman Yoon Myung-hwan, it sounded rather plausible. Besides all that, though, what did this kid do to get on his father's bad side like this? When Jin stared with a pair of questioning gaze, Jin-O spoke up, his voice trembling. So, like I was wondering, Youngnam, can I impose on you for the time being? Jin quietly closed the door and even proceeded to lock it. Worried, Jinna had been observing the situation from her room, and once Jin turned away from the door, she quickly jogged next to him and asked,
Oppa? Who was that? Do you know him?
Jin shook his head.
Nope, never met him before.
You really don't know him? But why did he come to our place then?
Don't worry about it. I'm sure he got the wrong number.
Wrong address. Wrong number.
I'm sure he got the wrong address.
Really?
But it sure didn't look like that, though. As Jin gently but firmly pushed his still suspicious little sister back into her room, Jin-O's sorrowful voice continued to ring out behind him. Young Nim! Young Nim!
Dear, don't you think you were being too harsh on Jinno earlier today?
Myung-hwan roughly yanked at his tie. What an insolent little child. He was about to be gifted with the Eugen Guild, which would no doubt become the Eugen Construction's core business in the future, yet he dared to answer like that? I've decided to work for Hyung Nim's guild. What? Follow Hyung Nim, was it? That fool deserved it. Myung-han snorted derisively. If the boy wished to stand on his 2 feet, then he should do so on his own power, too. The father thought he'd teach his son about every choice being accompanied by responsibilities and consequences. Was it because he was far too agitated? For some reason, it felt like his tie just didn't want to come undone. His clumsy and hasty hands caused the tie to be tangled up even more instead, prompting the lady of the Yu family to reach out with her hands.
Let me do it for you.
Soon enough, the tie was easily loosened. Myung-hwan entrusted himself to his wife's skillful hands. However, the wife began giggling while holding his tie.
What's the matter, dear?
Myung-hwan was confused. She had been doing his ties for as long as they were together, so she shouldn't have found his tangled up tie all that funny by now.
My dear, are you sure you're really angry?
Did she eat something wrong? Why was she saying something so nonsensical? Myung-hwan tilted his head slightly and took a look at his own reflection in the mirror. What the? He was surprised by what he saw. Why did he look so pleased in the reflection even though his mouth was busy spewing out complaints only a second ago? Feeling embarrassed now, Myung-han began rubbing his cheeks and chin. Today was the first time, wasn't it, dear?
What do you mean?
Jinno rebelling against me. That was why he was angry. Just like how water flowed from the top to bottom, a large corporation would not be able to sustain its massive self if the orders from the top didn't get delivered to the rest. He believed it was the same story for running a family as well. That was why he maintained the exact same type of attitude he'd have when he at work while he was at home with his family, and he did not accept anyone going against his decisions. However, even though he was feeling angry today, why didn't he feel bad about it either? I'm angry but not unhappy at the same time. This situation made no sense when he thought about it. The madam spoke gently, like a mother pacifying a child, as if she had already read everything in her husband's mind.
Jinno is trying to do something he feels passionate about for the first time in his life. So how about cooling your anger a little and cheering him on from the side?
Myung-han shut his mouth tight. He found it a bit hard to decipher his own head at the moment. For the time being, I shall keep an eye on him.
Of course.
The madam formed a sweet smile and received his jacket as he took it off. However, something happened then. Myung-han stared at his wife's face. But this is strange.
What is strange, dear?
I can see 2 of your faces.
Pardon?
Just as the madam's eyes widened, Myung-han lost his balance and staggered unsteadily.
Dear?
The frightened madam hurriedly tried to support Myung-han. He shook his head continuously, heavy gasps escaping from his mouth. The madam's eyes opened wider. Why is there so much cold sweat? Myung-han tried to keep his eyes wide open to forcibly beat back the sudden feeling of sleepiness, but in the end lost consciousness. Myung-han reopened his eyes inside the VIP room located in the country's top university hospital. One of the doctors in charge approached him to check up on Myung-han's complexion. They had been working in a 24-hour rotation schedule to keep an eye on his condition. Can you hear me, Chairman? Myung-han took a quick look around him and immediately figured out where he was.
How long have I been here?
You've been sleeping for the last 2 days.
2 days?
The person most likely to be picked as the role model for hard working would be Yu Myung-han. He had never slept for more than 5 hours in a day in his entire life, no matter how tired he was. Couldn't be me. I need 8 hours. Myung-han resolutely kept his mouth shut before speaking up as if it was nothing.
I guess I was quite tired then.
He was indeed swarmed with various matters that kept him insanely busy recently. The sudden bolt of vertigo and that unshakable sleepiness were probably the side effects. However, the doctor couldn't hide the seriousness from his expression. Myung-han was the owner of the country's top company that employed tens of thousands of people, so he was already a master at reading people's expressions. Seeing the stiffening face of the doctor, Myung-han asked him,
By any chance, have you discovered something wrong with my body?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of Chapter 98. Onwards to Chapter 99! Let me take another sip. Keep the throat all coated and nice for the vocal cords. Chapter 99. Mr. Chairman, by any chance, do you have anyone near you who is a hunter or someone who's not a hunter yet but has been evaluated as an awakened? The doctor suddenly asked about something rather strange. Myung-han asked if there was something wrong with his body, yet why was he talking about hunters now? Myung-han asked back, feeling puzzled now.
What are you talking about? Why hunters all of a sudden?
Have you heard of eternal sleep? Hearing the term eternal sleep, Yu Myung-han finally lost his cool and his eyes trembled. The eternal sleep disorder, an endless slumber that no one could wake up from. Not only was it impossible to wake up from this death-like slumber, but the life force of the sufferer would also decline quite sharply, so it was a necessity to use life support machines that utilize magic energy. Appearing for the first time after the advent of the gates, it was a terrifying illness that managed to kill scores of people who lacked the wherewithal to borrow one of those life support machines. It's an illness where you'll be assaulted by drowsiness.
It's an illness where you'll be assaulted often by drowsiness and eventually you'd be unable to wake up at all.
The doctor carried a complicated expression. There had not been a single case of the sufferer of the eternal sleep waking up so far. Even if one's life was extended via machines, you'd still be unable to open your eyes. It was no different from a death sentence for the victims. Myung-han waited for the doctor to finish explaining before asking his question.
How does this relate to hunters?
The eternal sleep is widely believed to be deeply related to magic energy. There were those people who, by nature, couldn't endure magic energy all that well. One of the abnormalities displayed by these people after being exposed to surrounding magic energy for a long time was this eternal sleep disorder.
Wait, isn't magic energy used to power the life support machines that supply life force to the patients?
That is true, but just like how one could safely use the electricity generated by the dangerous material fueling the nuclear reaction, the doctor explained, magical devices and magics utilizing magic energies do not harm people. What you need to be careful with are the magic crystals, mana stones, as well as people possessing magic energy.
People possessing magic energy.
Myung-han immediately recalled the soul awakened in his family, Jinho. Meanwhile, the doctor cautiously carried on. I've heard that your second son is a hunter, sir. When Jinho was mentioned, Myung-han's face visibly hardened.
So, the gist of it is, you want me to never meet my own son, is that it?
If it's at all possible, that is indeed my
Don't make me laugh!
Myung-han abruptly cut the doctor off and emphasized his point.
Don't speak of nonsense.
And then, as if he was annoyed, he gestured the doctor to leave. Chairman. The doctor hesitated, not knowing what to do, but he soon left the room as if he was being chased away after being glared at by Myung-han's furious eyes. He continued to glare at the door the doctor used to escape with barely concealed fury in his eyes.
Distance oneself from one's son just because one fears the illness getting worse. Is that something a father should even say?
Sure, let's say that did happen. What if Jinno heard the news? What would that boy think of then? As a father, he could not bear to burden his son with something that heavy. At least, that's what Myung-han believed.
Not only that.
With each passing day, people found more and more practical applications for magic energy, and the number of people innately possessing magic energy was steadily increasing as well. So if you couldn't withstand magic energy when living in a world like this, didn't that already mean you had been eliminated from the natural selection? Myung-han harrumphed unhappily.
Aye, you, Myung-han, have failed to make the cut.
Such a thing could never happen.
I will not submit.
Even when everyone else ridiculed him and predicted his failure, he always managed to succeed so his detractors could take a good look at him. He was the very person who, after inheriting the Eugene construction that barely cracked the top 30 in the country, turned it into the #1 corporation in South Korea.
So you think I'll kneel in defeat over a stupid illness like this?
He wouldn't give up. Myung-han inwardly told himself this over and over again. Before leaving, Jin carefully opened the door to his sister's room. As it was still in the early hours, Jinna remained blissfully stuck in a slumber so deep that she'd not be any wiser if someone kidnapped her right now. Suddenly, he felt worried.
There might be an idiot or two who'll try to get closer to her while I'm away.
Of course, there should be no one stupid enough to harm the little sister of a rank S hunter, but well, it was hard to tell what was in a human's heart sometimes. At least he needed some sort of a contingency plan.
Wait a minute. I can hide my soldiers inside shadows, right?
Jin recalled the time when he sent out his shadow soldiers on the patrol of the district in case that serial killer decided to show up again. Back then, soldiers moved by hiding in the various shadows found in his surroundings. By utilizing that, he might be able to protect his sister without anyone even noticing it. Which was good, because he just so happened to possess the perfect candidates for this role.
Come out.
Jin called out those monster soldiers that had been guarding Fangs when they were still alive.
Shoo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
3 of the biggest, burliest high orcs appeared simultaneously and ended up making the already tiny room of his sister feel even more claustrophobic.
Huh? Why are there only 3?
There definitely had been 4 guards, though. Jin combed through his memories only to spit out a soundless groan. Only now did he remember that he planted one of the guards in the ceiling of the boss room, and naturally, he forgot to extract that guy's shadow.
I guess I should pay closer attention next time.
Jin smirked softly, before shifting his gaze over to the 3 monster soldiers who used to be high orc guards while still alive. All of them were elite grade. They were on another scale altogether when compared to the shadows extracted from the regular high orcs. With these 3, they would still be fine, even if their opponent was a rank A hunter. He wasn't exaggerating here. The leader of the hunter's raid team, the rank A Son Ki-hoon, was pushed to a corner while fighting off 3 regular high orcs after all. So there was no reason to worry about these guys. Jin pointed with his chin towards the sleeping Jinna, and when that happened,
Shoo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
The guards returned to shadow forms and moved along the floor, and they assimilated into her shadow.
Very good.
Hidden there quietly, and when Jinna finds herself in danger, get rid of the opponent, regardless of who it is. Oh.
Hide in there quietly, and when Jinna finds herself in danger, get rid of the opponent, regardless of who it is.
Jin gave that order to the guards and carefully shut the door to her room.
I can relax a little now.
Indeed, he felt less worried. He made sure to lock the front door properly and exited from the apartment, and found Jinho waiting for him there, just as promised. Young Nim! Jinho greeted Jin with a bright face. Was it okay?
Was it okay sleeping in that place?
Yes, it was fine, young Nim. I had no idea, but motels nowadays seem to feature pretty good anemones. But motels nowadays seem to feature pretty good amenities. Amenities. A lot of these amenities. Since his little sister was staying at home, Jin had Jinho stay in a local motel nearby. Thankfully, it must not have been too bad there.
Until we can find some office space for my guild, stay there for the time being.
Got it, young Nim. He must have been enjoying himself since Jinho continued to giggle. Jin already heard the most of what happened from the kid last night. While listening to the tale, he was hoping against hoping, but to think this kid would show up here after really rejecting the golden chance to become a guildmaster. When he heard that, Jin was so dumbfounded that he just had to ask, and that prompted Jinho to reply while sounding like a victim.
You really came over just because I made an offer?
But young Nim, you said I could come! Even then, Jin couldn't really kick. Yo! Oh, it was you, Mihai. Amenities, anemones, same thing. Tomato, tomato, potato, potato. It's literally like that. Even then, Jin couldn't really kick to the curb a kid who gave up on a job equivalent to being a chairman of a company just to be next to him.
Okay, well, let's go.
Yes, young Nim! Jinho climbed into the driver's seat of the van, and Jin settled down on the passengers, and the van containing 2 people drove towards the Daesung Tower. Jinho sneaked a glance at Jin. What business does he have in the Daesung Tower so early in the morning? He was curious, but he also thought that asking young Nim this and that would be quite insolent of him, so his lips didn't want to part that easily. Skirt! A better screeching sound for a van. By the time their van came to a stop in front of the Daesung Tower, though, he managed to work up some courage. By the way, young Nim, what about this Daesung Tower?
I'm off.
Eh? Jinho hurriedly turned his head to the passenger side. However, the door was already wide open and young Nim was nowhere to be seen. Didn't something similar to this happen before? Jinho scratched the side of his head. Young Nim can be so elusive sometimes, you know? And you're laughing at that? At least it's better than that whatever sound I made the last time I did the screeching sound of a van. At least it sounds more in line car-wise. Me thinks, you know what? I already have a thought in mind of what's going to happen, and I'll confirm it once I see it. Young Nim can be so elusive sometimes, you know?
You have entered Demon's Castle Dungeon.
Jin canceled his stealth skill.
I finally returned.
Thinking that he had returned to the place where he could cut loose without worry, his heart began pounding harder. As soon as he walked past the castle's gates, the mechanical bleep went off as if it was waiting for his arrival.
Ding! A new quest is available.
Unlike the first time he got here, Jin wasn't surprised. Well, the quest he got the first time was called Collect the Souls of Demons 1, after all. He expected the next part of the quest to show up sooner or later. Jin opened the message window.
Ding! Normal quests. Collect the souls of demons 2. The sovereign of the demons Baron can be found residing on the top floor of the demon's castle. Defeat Baron and collect his soul. If you succeed in sealing the soul of the Demon King, you will be rewarded handsomely. The goal
The goal of this quest is to kill the Demon King?
Jin's expression brightened. He no longer needed to go all over the place now. Instead, he just needed to climb up to the top floor of the demon's castle as soon as possible. And the reward on offer were excellent as well.
30 bonus stat points.
The previous quest was pretty much slave labor, asking him to collect 10,000 demon souls, and after all that hard work, he only received 20 bonus points. However, he could earn 30 points this time by killing one demon king. He'd need 10 days of daily quests or 6 level ups to match that amount of stat points. A smile instinctively broke out of his lips at this unexpectedly rich reward.
Okay, what is this highest grade runestone all about?
Jin confirmed the details of the first reward next.
Ding! Highest grade runestone Shadow Exchange. By breaking this highest grade runestone, you can learn a class-specific skill.
I can learn a class-specific skill? Class-specific skill?
Jin's brows shot up. So far, he had earned 3 class-specific skills: the Shadow Extraction, the Shadow Storage, and finally, Sovereign's Territory. Every single one of them was an indispensable skill. And, just from the mere idea of adding one more skill to his roster, his heart palpitated even harder.
What kind of skill is this?
He wanted to confirm the information on the skill, but the only thing that popped up was its name, and no in-depth explanation was offered. Jin could only smack his lips wryly.
Well, I'll find out eventually after completing the quest.
A class-specific skill and 30 bonus stats, too. Even when excluding the unknown reward, it was already a remarkable amount of loot on offer. He was really tempted to simply rush up to the top floor in one go, but...
Before I start anything, though...
Jin summoned his status window for the first time in a while.
Ring! Name, Sung Jinu. Level, 80. Title, The One Who Overcame the Adversity. HP, 24,406. MP, 5,019. Tiredness, 0. Stats, Strength, 186. Endurance, 145. Agility, 175. Intelligence, 189. Perception, 126. Remaining points available to distribute, 0. Reduction in physical damage, 46%. Skills, passive skills and active skills, class-specific skills, crafting skills, consumable, divine water of life, 2 out of 3. Equipped items.
His level was already 80, and thanks to him investing every single bonus stat on intelligence, he could see that it exceeded his strength stat now.
My intelligence stat is nearing the 200 mark already.
Clipped it and posted it in the Discord. See, that's the reason why I said I was going to wait for you to do it, because I knew you were going to clip it. I didn't want to put the idea in your head, but I knew you were going to clip it. That's the reason why I waited. I know it's over there right now. I don't even need to pull up Discord right now to know that you got the clip right there.
My intelligence stat is nearing the 200 mark already.
The result of that was his total MP now went past 5,000. His MP or mana was a must for one thing. It was like a cheat device that allowed him to infinitely revive his soldiers. But when he thought about the number of his soldiers increasing in the future, that 5,000 MP seemed rather inadequate in his eyes.
Fine. Let's get started.
Even a second couldn't be wasted here. Jin closed his status window. Currently, he was standing on the ground floor of the demon's castle. Getting back to the 76th floor, where he temporarily had to stop his conquest, wouldn't take long at all. So he immediately made his way over to the floor transfer magic circle.
Floors 1 to 76 have been opened. Which floor would you like to go to?
Jin spoke without hesitation.
76.
The light gleamed brightly. In the moment it took to blink an eye, his surroundings had changed completely. He was now faced with a vigorously burning city. When inside the floor transfer magic circle, he wasn't supposed to be affected by the environments outside, but it still felt like his skin was burning up already. Jin put the luggage down and pulled 2 artifacts out. First one was a black robe named the Wind Robe by its maker, and the other one was a nameless ring with watertight magic imbued within. Jin put on both the robe and the ring. After putting on the robe and pulling on the hood, Jin finally felt like he was a true mage-type hunter now.
I could feel my body cooling down.
Just by wearing them, it felt like he was standing inside a refreshingly cool cavern or some such.
I wonder, will this work against the flames of the demon's castle?
Jin slowly stepped outside of the magic circle. And, thankfully, these artifacts proved their expensive worth. The debilitating heat couldn't affect him at all now, quite unlike the last time he was here.
Wait, won't it be uncomfortable to move around because it's a robe?
He couldn't be sure, so he moved this way and that, but it proved to be surprisingly comfortable. As befitting its name, Wind Robe, the whole thing felt as light as air.
Nice.
With that, his preparations were complete. However, it seemed that he wasn't the only one who had finished his preparations, because demons had picked up on his scent and had formed a large group to rush towards his position. If it was in the past, he'd probably fight them off in order to loosen his muscles or search through every nook and cranny of each floor to increase his level.
However, right now
that his mother's treatment depended on this dungeon being cleared, he couldn't afford to waste a single second here. Rather than summoning out his daggers like the usual, he instead called out his soldiers first.
Shoo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
His trusty shadow soldiers revealed themselves.
Where is Fangs?
Jin looked for Fangs amidst his soldiers. It seemed that the higher the soldier's grade, the closer he'd appear, because Fangs had been summoned right behind Jin. He took out the bead of avarice from his inventory and placed it on top of Fang's palm.
You can use this from now on.
Even though Jin was supposed to be a mage type as well, the amplification effect of the bead of avarice didn't work on him. But he thought it proved to be quite helpful to a sorcerer like Fangs. As if to express his gratitude, Fangs deeply bowed his head.
Boom, boom, boom.
Finally, Jin could see the huge bodies of the demons getting closer.
Okay, time to get started.
After ordering his soldiers to get ready for battle, Jin grasped both Baruka's dagger and Nightkiller in his hands. Soon, demons rushed forward like a horde of insects in front of his nose. However, his own numbers weren't that lacking either. With a more relaxed expression on his face compared to his previous sojourn in this place, Jin bid his time and then loudly shouted, "Go!" No, actually, he was planning to shout, "Go now," but even before he could finish his words, from somewhere high above his head, a stupendously thick, frightening pillar of flames fell in a diagonal line and swept every single enemy away.
What the heck?
The moment that scary pillar of flame swept by, everything had melted down, whether that be demons or the ground itself. Demons were incinerated in an instant, and familiar mechanical beeps rang one after the other in his ears.
Level up! Level up!
No way.
Jin tried to calm his trembling heart and took a look behind him, and he spotted Fangs standing there, now twice the size of what his living counterpart grew to back in the dungeon, busy breathing out gray smoke from his mouth. Jin swallowed down dry saliva. 6! That is 6!
Is this the true might of the bead of avarice?
Since these monsters lived in the demon's castle, they all must have had some amount of innate resistance towards flame-based attacks, but they were all burnt away into oblivion just like that. Once he figured out what was going on, a chuckle broke out of his lips all by itself.
Wait, maybe I'll get to clear this place a lot thicker than I thought.
A lot quicker, not a lot thicker than I thought.
Maybe I'll get to clear this place a lot quicker than I thought.
Jin stared at the still burning remains of the demons as well as at the scorched black earth and screamed out in joy inwardly. And that's the end of chapter 99. Onwards to chapter 100. Perhaps this will be the last one for the day. We'll see. We still got enough time in the day. We could have a shakeup. We could have it appear once again. But chapter 100. Fangs' power, having been buffed by the item Bead of Avarice, was gobsmackingly, they use gobsmack, was gobsmackingly incredible. Fangs sucked in so much air that the temperature of the surroundings momentarily dropped to a bone-chilling level. And then he spat out a massive pillar of flame from left to right and literally vaporized all enemies before him.
You killed a high-ranked demon. You have earned 1,700 experience points. You killed a superior demon. You have earned 2,200 experience points.
Roughly around the same amount of experience points I get from killing I was about to say something, and I am going to save it because Kitty hasn't made it that far in the game yet.
You have earned 2,200 experience points. You killed a high-ranked demon.
The message is telling him that he killed a demon and earned some experience points endlessly popped up in his view. And the tring-trings of the mechanical beeps didn't want to end for a while. Jin was all smiles, though.
I've hit the jackpot.
His mana must have run dry because Fangs stopped attacking. A single shot from Fangs managed to vaporize the majority of the attacking demons group, but there were a few lucky ones who managed to somehow survive the fiery massacre. Jin simply... Solid save? Yep, I had to stop myself. Talking about video games makes me want to talk about video games, but I'm still gonna have that conversation about Xbox. I still am. I have to. It has to be talked about. It has to be discussed. But a single shot from Fangs managed to vaporize the majority of the attacking demons group, but there were a few lucky ones who managed to somehow survive the fiery massacre. Jin simply ordered his shadow soldiers to go and get rid of them. Quietly watching over 100 of his shadow soldiers marching forward in perfect order, Jin finally felt like the Shadow Sovereign.
You killed a high-ranked demon. You killed a high-ranked demon.
The feel-good messages continued on. Jin didn't even lift a finger and used only his shadow soldiers to annihilate the monsters. The biggest contributor among them was, of course, Fangs.
Fangs, you beauty.
Jin looked behind him, or more specifically, way up behind him. He then saw the gigantified shadow magic soldier, previously a high orc sorcerer, and the bead of avarice that had been enlarged to match his size. That bead was an item capable of doubling the power of its holder's magic attack. From Jin's perspective, it looked like that bead shored up Fangs' powers quite nicely, which would have been nerfed someone after becoming a shadow soldier. And it looks like there was some room to spare, too.
Looks like I'll have to entrust the bead of avarice to Fangs for a while.
Even though he was also a magic type, he possessed not one skill that might enjoy the amplification effect, so he didn't have much of a choice here. Jin opened his own skill window.
Number of shadows that can be extracted, 127 out of 820. Number of shadows that can be stored, 127 out of 155.
Shadow extraction, shadow storage, and sovereign's territory. All three skills were unaffected by the bead of avarice whatsoever. If he wanted to increase the number of slots for either the extraction or storage of his shadows, the sole method available currently was to increase his intelligence stat. Jin closed the skill window. Meanwhile, the soldiers gathered one by one in front of Jin after mopping up their quarries. Seeing the mountain of demon corpses piled up like that, the corners of Jin's lips arched up considerably.
With this many demons, I get plenty of loot as a result.
This time, an endless stream of item acquisition messages popped up in his view.
Well, I got everything I can from here.
Jin smiled deeply as he went about acquiring all the loot, and after finishing that up, he climbed up on the back of Tank, his trusty Ice Bear Shadow Beast soldier. The so-called entry permit allowing him to move to the next floor hadn't come out yet, which meant he had to kill more monsters on this floor. Jin ordered his troops to move out.
Giddy up.
Tank slowly began trotting forward, and the Shadow Soldiers all followed after Jin in an orderly fashion.
The whole army moving around together is inefficient.
Jin thought that all 120 Shadow Soldiers acting as one unit was not quite efficient enough. If the individual soldier was weak, fine. This tactic made sense. But even the regular soldiers had gone up several levels now, and they could more or less hold their own against the demons and still achieve some success. Not only that, he even had assimilated monsters from a rank A dungeon into his Shadow Soldier army too. Quite obviously, the overall quality of the army had risen up by a lot.
You killed a high-ranked. You killed a...
What with his soldiers boasting such a mighty combat prowess, the time taken to move around and search for monsters turned out to be longer than it took to actually kill them. The thing was, each floor of this demon's castle was as wide as an average city.
This will take forever at this rate.
Jin divided his soldiers into 6 groups of 20, and then had them scatter around to hunt down monsters. He gave them 2 orders.
1. Kill every enemy you find. 2. If the entry permit for the next floor is found, let me know straight away.
It may not be possible to hold a conversation with his soldiers, but he could still communicate by using simple hand gestures. Since the soldiers couldn't pick up any loot, he had to go there personally if he were to acquire the entry permit. Sure, he'd had to give up on other loot besides the floor entry permit, but his current priority was to get to the top floor as soon as possible.
Begin.
With his command, all 6 groups went their separate ways. And a short while later...
You have earned 1,500 experience points. You have earned 1,500 experience points. You have earned 900 experience points. You have earned 1,100 experience points.
Experience points began raining down on him from literally everywhere.
Looks like my shadows have begun hunting, huh?
Jin watched his experience points climb up and formed a pleased expression. However, he soon discovered that something was off.
The amount of experience points I get has decreased?
After arriving on the upper floors, he never once ran into the commonly found low or mid-ranked demons from the lower floors. High-ranked demons appeared most of the time, and even now then he would find a couple of superior demons mixed in among them. The amount of experience points earned after killing a high-ranked demon was 1,700, and from the superior, a creature 1 rank higher than high-ranked demons, he received the fixed amount of 2,200. 200 points. However, the amount he was getting at the moment fell far, far short of those numbers.
Could it be that the further away they are from me, the less experience points I earn?
Jin quietly observed the experience points messages popping up non-stop for a while. The amount of earned had definitely decreased, albeit by a small margin. It seems that he was right about the distance affecting the amount of experience points he could earn.
I got to learn about something useful.
He wouldn't have found out about this fact without the unique setup of the demon's castle, which let him know of the information regarding experience points. He also thought that he did the right thing by not letting his soldiers go out in groups to hunt on the lower floors. Back then, he wanted to refine his combat style even further by personally fighting the monsters, as well as not wanting to miss out on a single demon soul, the so-called quest completion items. Still, he didn't think the reduced experience points weren't much of a loss.
Sure, I'm getting less experience points, but
Now that much more efficient hunting was taking place over a greater expanse of the hunting area, the overall rate of the experience points earned was actually a lot faster than before. Even now, the experience points messages were raining down on him. With the situation being like this, his level that had stayed still since the first battle of this floor suddenly gained a lot of momentum.
Level up! Level up!
Jin clenched his fists tightly. Nice. Sure, he felt a bit sore about giving up on loot, but
leveling up and fast clearing speed. I shall catch these two birds in one go.
Jin smiled in satisfaction as he confirmed his level, jumping up by 2. His plan was on the money. He got to climb up to the 80th floor much faster than anticipated. As soon as arriving there, he summoned his soldiers once more. 119 shadow soldiers were summoned simultaneously. The soldiers and their levels had all climbed up pretty nicely after going on their own groups to hunt monsters and earn a ton of experience points for themselves.
Oh? Since when did Tank gain over 10 levels?
Jin's eyes opened wider. Maybe it felt happy after his owner's interested gaze fell on it. Tank, who had reached level 28 only yesterday, stood on his hind legs and let out a roar of Jin wasn't the only one to enjoy the fruits of the efficient hunting, as it turned out. He grinned brightly.
All right then, let's go.
Just like before, he divided his army into 6 groups and had them set off. He then took off alone as well. He was familiar with acting alone anyway, and he also didn't really need the soldiers' help either. Excluding Fangs buffed up by the bead of avarice, he was pretty confident of fighting the whole Shadow Army and winning.
However, if Fangs is included,
in that case, who knows? If Fangs was indeed included, then things could get really interesting, that's for sure. In the end, though, it was just him imagining something improbable anyway.
Was it a week or so ago?
Out of sheer curiosity, and also a bit as an experiment, he ordered shadow soldiers to attack him. For the first time ever, the soldiers disobeyed him.
I couldn't tell whether that was from their loyalty to me or because of another power restricting them.
They didn't budge an inch in the end. Well, as a guy using them as a subordinates, that result wasn't such a bad one.
Regardless of all that, how come I can't see any demons?
After summoning Bodika's dagger, Jin lightly tossed it over his head and caught it a few times while searching for the presence of monsters.
I can tell that they're nearby, but...
Jin took a quick look around. He could definitely sense their presence nearby, but he couldn't spot a single monster.
When was it again?
Didn't he experience something similar to this before? It was then the ground seemed to undulate violently a couple of times before the earth suddenly shot up. At the same time, 3 superior demons emerged from the ground and surrounded Jin while letting off rather unpleasant cackles. Jin frowned deeply. Demons took that as a sign of their prey being scared, and they scrambled amongst themselves to throw their open-wide maws first at the head of the prey. It was to call dibs on the tastiest part of a human, the head. However, when that prey jumped up and spun around once in the air, even before Jin's feet landed back on the ground, heads of the demons fell with soft thuds first.
You killed a superior demon. You killed a...
Ah.
Jin lightly clapped his hands. He finally recalled when it happened. It was the last rank C dungeon he cleared with Jinno.
Right. Those stone men back then were hiding underground before bursting out like this, weren't they?
Jin's expression that had darkened from failing to remember brightened up immediately. It sure felt like he had gotten a load off his chest. Ganesh! Hello! I hope life has been treating you well. Jin took care of the loot from the monster corpses, his face still bright, and began walking away again. But only after taking a handful of steps, he stopped again. Jin's eyes were now nailed to the ground. While glaring at the ground beneath his feet, he spoke up.
By the way, why aren't you guys coming out already?
No one could tell whether the thing that trembled just then happened to be the ground or the demon's eyes. Jin wasn't able to easily leave the 80th floor.
Is there a group of really strong monsters somewhere on this floor?
Yet another of Jin's group returned back to him as shadows. He had no choice but to call them back because his mana couldn't sustain the rate of the soldiers' destruction and revival anymore. This would be the first time this happened. From the 76th to the 80th floor, the method of hunting in diverse groups during the past 4 floors had yielded the highest efficiency.
Is it because fighting against superior demons is still too much to ask for?
For sure, it were the superior demons and not high-ranked demons that appeared on the 80th floor most of the time. Heck, those superior demons even employed petty tricks like hiding under the ground, too. Even then, he didn't think the superior demons possessed such powers to be able to push back his soldiers to this degree.
Not only that,
there was something weird here as well, and that would be the groups of soldiers getting attacked all happened to lack a captain class among them. The groups with Fang, Igris, Iron, and Tank were all perfectly fine, but the other 2 with no captain class got annihilated.
Wait, could it be that the enemy is deliberately attacking the weakest groups first?
If so, it could only mean that a monster possessing high enough intelligence to detect the opponent's weakness existed on this floor. Not only strong, but it even possessed intelligence. He obviously didn't know who it or they were, but without a doubt, they were proving to be a bit of a pain in the neck. There were 4 groups remaining. If he were to include himself, then 5.
If the enemy has figured out the soldiers' movement pattern, then their next target is pretty obvious.
The moment he thought that, Jin disappeared from that spot. And that is the end of chapter 100, ladies and gentlemen. We are done with this reading. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for being patient with me with me having to take my lunch break and everything. I am going to tread extremely carefully with whether or not I am going to continue reading the light novel on this channel due to the fact that the situation that happened with me with the beginning after the end. I don't want that to happen with me reading the solo leveling light novel arc, considering that the light novel, not the light novel arc, but the light novel of solo leveling also has an audiobook out there. And I would hate for them to implement a system that would call for all of this to be shuttered. So, I'll come to a decision on whether or not I will continue, or whether I'll call this the last of me reading it, just to be on the safe side. I haven't decided yet, but I'm kind of leaning in that direction. But I'll let you all know officially later on. But this will be it for me reading Solo Leveling's chapters 91 to 100. And to Mihai, to Kitty, to Ganesh, to CDs, every single person who tuned in here today, firstly, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for all the love and support you have shown me through reading all of these chapters thus far and also supporting me on this channel. Hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Even check out my Patreon because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. And because I know you're coming back anyway. Have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples!